The story begins with a boy named Kikori, who walks slowly towards a massive gate, its shadow covering the path ahead. He stops right in front of it, looking up at its towering height, and quietly tells himself that he has finally reached Nirgen, the rampart city. He knows this city is famous for being surrounded by a huge, unbroken wall that serves as the first and strongest line of defense against the dangerous monsters roaming in the contaminated area beyond. Inside this city, people with strength and courage can become adventurers, risking their lives to fight monsters and earn rewards. Kikori thinks that here, even someone like him, burdened with a troubled and messy past, has the chance to make money and start anew. With that thought in mind, he takes a step forward, but before he can enter, a guard standing at the gate blocks his way by lowering a spear. The guard looks him over and asks if this is his first time coming to Nirgen. Kikori answers politely that it is. The guard's gaze sharpens, and he asks what business has brought him here. Kikori, in a calm but firm tone, replies that he wants to become an adventurer. Hearing this, the guard says it seems Kikori already knows about the place, but then his expression turns serious as he asks if Kikori is prepared to die. Without any pause or hesitation, Kikori answers that he is ready to face death if needed. The guard studies his face closely, paying special attention to his eyes, and feels a wave of confusion. In those eyes, he sees a clear and unshaken determination to follow the dangerous path ahead, something rare in someone so new, especially when the chances of dying as an adventurer are known to be very high. The guard looks at Kikori with a serious expression and says that he does not like to see young people die, especially those who have just stepped into adulthood, but the city is always short of manpower and needs more hands to fight against the dangers outside. Because of that, he says he will allow him to enter, warning him once again that the choice he is making is dangerous. Still, he adds that he welcomes him to Nirgen. Kikori bows his head slightly and thanks him sincerely for giving him the chance to go inside. They begin walking together through the massive gate, the heavy wooden doors slowly closing behind them. As they move down the stone-paved street leading deeper into the city, the guard glances at him and says that he appears to be far braver than most people his age. He explains that many of the young ones who come here arrive with nothing but empty and pointless hopes in their eyes, not truly understanding what lies ahead. Kikori listens to his words and quietly tells himself that it is not surprising, since in many of their hometowns there is no real way to make a proper living, and so they are forced to seek a future here. He thinks of his own journey and remembers that before he left home, someone had given him an axe as a farewell gift. He has already decided deep within that he will use that axe to kill monsters and survive no matter what. The guard then turns to him and asks for his name. Kikori introduces himself clearly and firmly. The guard nods, takes out a small wooden plate, and carefully writes Kikori's name on it before handing it over. He tells him that from this moment onward he is officially welcome to the rampart city, Nirgen. Kikori walks slowly through the streets of Nirgen, looking around with wide eyes and thinking to himself that the city is much bigger than he had imagined. He passes by a store and glances at the wooden sign above the door, but realizes he cannot read the name because he has never learned how to read or write. For a moment, he wishes that he had such knowledge. Just then, he feels a large, heavy hand land on top of his head, and a voice from behind asks if he is new here. Kikori turns around and sees a bald, black-skinned, and muscular man standing behind him, towering over him. The man glances at the wooden plate in Kikori's hand and asks if he is aiming to become an adventurer. Kikori answers politely that he is. The man nods and says that he will guide him, though Kikori, while thanking him, feels a small doubt in his heart that this might be some sort of trick. The man then introduces himself as Gantz and says that he is also an adventurer. Kikori responds by introducing himself in return. Gantz's eyes move to the axe Kikori is carrying, and he asks if that is his weapon. When Kikori confirms, Gantz tells him that everyone in this place is just like him, so he should not feel out of place or isolated. They walk together through the busy streets until they arrive at a large building, which Gantz identifies as the guild hall. He pushes the heavy door open, looks back at Kikori, and calls him Kiddo, telling him to follow closely behind. Kikori frowns slightly and says that he has a proper name, so Gantz should not call him that. Gantz laughs in a carefree manner and says he will keep calling him Kiddo until the day Kikori lives long enough to make him remember his real name. As soon as Gantz steps into the guild hall with Kikori following behind, an adventurer sitting nearby notices them and makes a teasing comment, saying that Gantz has picked up another kid just like he always does. Gantz glares at him and tells him to shut up, but another man nearby laughs and says that Gantz is the child protector of the city. Hearing this, Kikori turns to Gantz and asks if he has guided many children before. Gantz sighs and admits that he has, but most of the time, he ends up finding only their skeletons later, and it bothers him deeply that there is nothing he could do to save them. Before Kikori can respond, the receptionist, a young woman with sharp features and short blonde hair who looks somewhat like Yelena from AOT, calls out to Gantz from behind the counter and asks him what kind of kid he has found this time. Gantz walks over and replies that this one is different from the usual, describing Kikori as an ambitious adventurer. Kikori steps forward and approaches the counter. The receptionist studies his face for a moment and then tells him that if he wants to register as an adventurer using that wooden plate, it is her duty to handle it. She gestures toward Gantz and explains that he is a very trustworthy adventurer in their branch, and if Kikori ever wants to find another kind of job instead, he can go to him for help. She adds that they have many other jobs in the city besides being an adventurer, jobs with more stability and a steady salary. After giving him all these options, she looks at him again and asks if he still truly wants to be an adventurer. Kikori answers without hesitation that he still wants to pursue it. Gantz, standing beside him, tells the receptionist firmly that Kikori has already made up his mind to become an adventurer. After confirming his decision, the receptionist asks Kikori to give his introduction and also asks if the axe on his back is his weapon. Kikori politely introduces himself and replies that, yes, the axe is his weapon. She then tells him to hand it over so she can take a closer look. Kikori takes the axe from his back and passes it to her. She holds it carefully, running her eyes over the blade and the handle, and after examining it for a moment, she says that it is clear the weapon has been used a lot, but there is not a single trace of blood on it. This, she explains, means it has most likely been used for chopping wood and not for fighting living creatures. She adds that even if she polishes and sharpens it, there is no guarantee that it will be effective in cutting through a living being. Handing the axe back to him, she explains that if he truly wants to join the guild officially, he must complete the registration process. She asks him to give her his wooden plate, and in exchange, she takes out a small, shiny bronze card and places it in his hand. Kikori looks at it with curiosity and asks what it is. The receptionist explains that it is a proof of trustworthiness, his official adventurer card, and that bronze level is the rank given to beginners. She tells him that the rank of his card will decide the kinds of discounts and benefits he can receive from various stores in the city. Kikori examines the card closely and remarks that since this city stands as the front line against monsters and the number of adventurers is low, the adventurer card must be a way to encourage and motivate more people to take up the role. Hearing this, the receptionist smiles warmly at him and says that he is much smarter than most newcomers she has seen. Kikori looks at the receptionist in shock as he did not expect that his guess would be so much accurate. The receptionist goes on to say that most newcomers would be overjoyed the moment they see an adventurer card in their hands, their faces lighting up with excitement, but Kikori's calm and steady reaction shows that he is more mature and grown-up than most people his age. Gantz, who is standing beside him with folded arms, nods in agreement and says that he truly believes Kikori is very talented. The receptionist then turns her attention fully toward Kikori, her voice carrying through the hall as she declares that he is now officially registered as an adventurer. Her words draw the attention of the other adventurers in the room, and several of them turn to look at him, offering smiles and words of welcome. One of them raises his voice with a playful tone, cheering for him and telling him not to die too soon. Gantz leans in close to Kikori's ear and whispers that he is finally an adventurer now, but he must make sure not to die early. Kikori smiles slightly at the comment and thanks him sincerely. Gantz then tells him that he cannot teach him every single thing about this dangerous life, but there is one lesson he must give him now: he must never hesitate. Kikori's face changes as he hears this, his eyes showing that he understands the meaning behind those words. After this moment, the receptionist takes out a thick book from the counter, flips through it, and tears out a single page from a notebook tucked inside. She hands the page to Kikori, but he hesitates before admitting that he cannot read. The receptionist nods, her tone becoming patient as she says that in that case, she will explain everything to him. She tells him that his first request is to gather a type of herb called nibe, and for each nibe herb he collects, he will be paid 100 yen. She explains further that if he manages to gather at least 10 of these herbs, he will have enough money to stay in one of the cheapest rooms in the Adventurer Guild building. However, she warns him that the cheapest room is only for testing new adventurers. It is shared with others, and no meals are included in the stay, so he must plan carefully if he wants to survive. He thinks to himself that he wants to sleep peacefully. Kikori looks at the receptionist and asks her how he can earn more money than what he would get from collecting Nibe herbs. The receptionist thinks for a moment and then explains that there are other kinds of herbs in the area which are much rarer and more expensive, so finding them would pay better. She also tells him that another way is to exterminate monsters, such as goblins. Goblins, she says, usually only drop magic stones when killed, but monsters at a certain higher level can be harvested for other valuable parts, which can then be traded for a good amount of money. Seeing his interest, she begins to explain more about the magic stones. She says that a magic stone is a crystal that forms inside a demon's body when its magic power crystallizes, and that these stones have many important uses, making them a highly valuable item for trade. In most places, they are almost as good as currency and can be exchanged instead of money without any problem. However, her tone turns serious as she warns him that plenty of beginners lose their lives to goblins because they underestimate them, and so he must not attempt anything reckless just to earn more. Kikori listens quietly to her words, and then, almost in a whisper to himself, he admits that all he truly wants is a simple life where no one bullies him, but he also knows that he can never reach such a life if all he does is collect herbs. Kikori knows in his heart that even though he does not have to exterminate monsters right now, sooner or later the day will come when he must face them if he wants to survive, grow stronger, and continue his journey as an adventurer. Holding on to that thought, he thanks the receptionist for all the help and advice she has given him. She nods gently and tells him to take proper care of himself while he is outside, because the world beyond the walls is full of dangers that even experienced adventurers sometimes fail to overcome. Before leaving, Kikori looks at her and asks for her name, perhaps wanting to remember the person who wished him well at the start of his first quest. The receptionist smiles warmly and says that she will tell him her name only after he returns safely from his quest, almost as if setting a small challenge or promise between them. She then points toward the massive Hero's Gate and explains that once he steps through it, he will find himself in the contaminated zone, a dangerous place crawling with monsters of every shape and size. Kikori starts walking toward the gate, the sight of its towering structure making him feel both nervous and excited. But before he can pass through, another guard steps forward and stops him. The guard looks him over carefully and asks if he is an adventurer. Kikori answers politely that he is. The guard then asks him to show his identification, so Kikori reaches into his belongings, takes out his adventurer card, and hands it over for inspection. The guard examines it for a moment, and then asks if he is a newcomer. Kikori replies with another yes, adding that it is his first day on the job. Hearing this, the guard's tone becomes more serious, as he warns him that the deeper he travels inside the contaminated area, the stronger and more dangerous the monsters will become, and that he must never forget this if he wants to return alive. Then he warns Kikori that there is surely exceptions inside. Kikori tells the guard that he understands he will be in serious danger if he does not take the place seriously, and the guard explains that sometimes many strong monsters appear near the gate without warning, and if that happens, he will close it at once, no matter how many adventurers are still outside. Kikori asks if this is meant as a warning for him, and the guard says that he has seen with his own eyes many adventurers who could not return before the gate was shut, and that some of them never came back at all. Kikori replies that he understands the message clearly, but inside his mind he wonders if, when that time comes, he will fight to survive or simply give up and accept death. He then steps forward with a firm thought that he is now inside the death zone, where the only two paths are survival or death. He keeps walking with care until he reaches an open stretch of land filled with different kinds of plants, and he begins searching for the niberbs. As his eyes scan the ground and the bushes, he feels a rising confusion because there are so many plants of different shapes, sizes, and colors that he cannot tell which one is the herb he needs. The more he looks, the more he doubts if this quest is truly meant for beginners, because even this first step of finding the herbs feels harder and more complicated than he had expected when he accepted the task. Kikori is still scanning the plants when, without any sound or warning, another adventurer appears from nowhere like a ghost, and in a calm voice, asks him if he is searching for Nibe herbs. The sudden arrival makes Kikori's whole body jolt as if he has just seen a monster right in front of him, his heart pounding fast from the shock. The adventurer explains that Kikori will not find any Nibe herbs in this area, because almost every beginner starts their search here, and as a result, there are hardly any left to pick. He further says that if Kikori truly wants to find them, he must go deeper into the area where people usually go to hunt monsters, but warns that it will be far more dangerous there. Hearing this, Kikori lowers his voice and whispers to himself that he is not ready to face such danger yet, but also knows that he cannot earn his living just by collecting herbs. The thought of returning empty-handed burns inside him, and with a sudden burst of frustration, he digs his fingers into the grass beneath him, tearing it out in small clumps, before making up his mind with firm resolve that he will kill a goblin and survive, no matter the risk. Kikori walks deeper into the forest, and the air around him feels heavier with every step he takes. After only a short distance, his eyes suddenly fall on a goblin standing right there in his path. For a moment, he freezes, his heart beating faster, and he tries to gather every bit of courage he has. He tells himself that if he wants to survive, he must attack, and he slowly prepares to charge forward. But before he can even take proper action, the goblin suddenly spins around with surprising speed and rushes straight toward him, closing the distance in an instant. In that tense moment, Kikori lifts his axe and swings it with all the strength he can muster, aiming to strike the creature down. However, to his shock, the goblin meets his attack with a thin log of wood and blocks it completely. The force of the block pushes his weapon away, and he cannot believe that his heavy axe is stopped so easily by something so small in the goblin's hands. That disbelief lasts only a second, because before he can recover, the goblin thrusts forward and strikes him hard in the stomach. The blow is so strong that Kikori's body lifts off the ground and crashes into a tree behind him. The impact sends sharp pain through his whole body, and his breath almost stops for a moment. Holding his stomach, he realizes that it is not a matter of being careless or slow. This goblin is simply far stronger than he imagined. That thought makes him feel the same heavy frustration he has always felt, and it sinks into him that he is still just as weak now as he was before, no matter how much he wants to believe otherwise. Kikori's past flashes before his eyes as he sits there in pain. He remembers saying that when a child speaks of strange things that ordinary people do not understand, even the parents of that child may wish he had never been born. His own parents had thought he was possessed and wanted to cast him out of the village. Everyone there believed he brought misfortune upon them, and so they threw rocks at him until he lost consciousness. The village church's priest, unable to bear such cruelty, had stepped in, given him an axe, and taught him how to survive. Now, sitting beneath a tree with blood trickling from his forehead, he whispers that he is too weak. Struggling, he reaches for his axe, grabs it tightly, and shouts with determination that he will not die here and that he will defeat the goblin. He rises, runs forward with his axe in hand, and the goblin charges toward him as well. In that moment, he recalls the advice Gantz had given him before he left and follows it without hesitation. With all his strength, he swings his axe in a furious strike, splitting the goblin in half. Breathing heavily, his whole body trembling from the shock of his first kill, he wipes the blood from his face and searches for the magic stone. Once he finds it, he makes his way back to the guild hall. The receptionist is seated in her chair, reading a book, but immediately rushes to him upon seeing his bruised and battered state. He places 3 magic stones on the counter. She is astonished that he managed to kill 3 goblins on his first mission. With a weary and embarrassed expression, he admits that this is his limit and that it feels shameful to bring back so little. The receptionist responds with a small smile, and the other adventurers pat him on the back in encouragement. Gantz, watching from nearby, remarks that he is starting to like him already. With that, Kikori takes his first true step toward becoming an adventurer. The receptionist gives Kikori 3,000 yen as payment for killing 3 goblins and bringing back 3 magic stones, and as soon as the coins are in his hand, he stares at them for a long moment. He thinks to himself that this is the very first reward he has ever earned in his life, and although he has no proper idea about the real market value of money in this place, he starts wondering what kind of things he could possibly buy with such an amount. He tries to imagine the prices of different things, and he remembers hearing that even the cheapest inn charges about 1,000 yen for just one night, which means that if he stays there for 3 nights, this entire reward will already be gone. This thought makes him uneasy because he also knows that he is missing many important pieces of equipment that an adventurer should have, and one of the most important is a proper armor to protect himself in battle. He then looks at his axe and thinks that it has already been used many times and might not last much longer, and the idea of his only weapon breaking in the middle of a fight worries him. He feels that having his own room to rest in would be more comfortable and safer than sleeping in shared spaces. But he realizes that whatever money he has right now is not only this small reward, but also the little travel budget given to him by the priest before he left, and even that was never enough to cover everything. He thinks that because of this, he has to be careful and save every coin he can, and so he cannot spend recklessly on comfort alone. As this reality becomes clearer to him, his expression changes and turns very serious, and he firmly tells himself in his mind that if he truly wants to make a decent living and survive as an adventurer, then he has no choice but to hunt more monsters to earn more money, and for that, he will absolutely need better and stronger weapons along with reliable armor that can protect his life in the dangerous days ahead. Kikori looks at the receptionist and asks if there is any store nearby where he can buy the basic things an adventurer needs, and the receptionist tells him that there is such a store in the basement of the guild, but she warns him that the prices there are high, even though the guild guarantees that the products sold are of good quality. Hearing this, he decides that he will at least take a look at the place. He walks down the stairs to the basement, and when he arrives, he is surprised and amused to see that the store is filled with a wide variety of strong and well-made weapons along with sturdy and impressive armors, making him think to himself that they seem to have everything an adventurer could need. While he is still looking around, a young lady suddenly appears in front of him and greets him warmly, and with a charming and cheerful smile, she asks if he is looking for something in particular. Kikori feels a little embarrassed and apologizes to her for coming in so suddenly, then explains that he was only wondering if there might be something in the store that he could actually afford with his small amount of money. She leans closer to his face, and the unexpected closeness makes him nervous, so he quickly tries to assure her that he is not a thief and has no bad intentions. She simply smiles again, seeming not to be offended, and then takes a dagger from the display, holding it out to him while keeping her cheerful smile as she tells him that he should definitely try one of these daggers to see how they feel in his hand. After that, she asks him about his budget so she can know what price range to suggest for him. She then lets her eyes move over him to take in his condition and tells him that, judging from his bruised and battered body, the only thing he really needs right now is not new armor or weapons but a good potion, because even the best armor will not help him fight properly while his body is in such poor shape. Kikori tells the shopkeeper that he will be fine after getting some proper sleep, thinking that rest might be enough for him to recover from his tiredness and bruises. But the shopkeeper shakes her head and replies that even if he were to buy a good piece of armor right now, it would not help him much, because in this area he would still end up getting robbed. Hearing this, Kikori's expression changes to a serious one, and in a firm tone he asks her if she really means that there are robbers around here. She nods and tells him that there are indeed many robbers in the area, and her tone makes it clear that she is not exaggerating. After hearing her words and realizing the risk, he decides that it might be wiser to focus on healing himself first, so he makes up his mind to buy a potion instead and asks her what the price of the cheapest potion is. The shopkeeper, however, shakes her head again and tells him that for his condition, he will have to buy a good potion, not a cheap one, because the cheaper ones will not work well enough. Kikori then tries to explain that his budget is very small and that he cannot afford something too expensive, but she calmly replies that a good potion will cost him 1,000 yen. Kikori looks at her in complete surprise, unable to hide his reaction, and says that the receptionist upstairs had told him that the quality of all weapons and tools sold in this store is guaranteed by the guild, but even with that in mind, he never expected the price to be so high. The shopkeeper only smiles at him, and with a gentle but confident look, she assures him that the price is exactly as she says, and that the quality matches it. Kikori tells the shopkeeper that in that case, he will have to go somewhere else to look for what he needs. But before he can leave, she stops him and asks if his budget is really that tight. Without waiting for him to answer fully, she explains that the reason their store sells items at such a high price is because every product here is guaranteed by the guild to be effective, and this guarantee means that the buyer will not waste money on something useless. She goes on to say that even if he were to spend the same amount of money, or even more, in another store, there is still a chance that the expensive items from there could turn out to be ineffective. Kikori listens carefully and then asks her if what she is saying is truly the case. She confidently tells him that it is, and she recommends that he should purchase one here instead of risking his money elsewhere. Kikori quietly whispers to himself that he really should not be using his money on potions when he needs to save for other things, but he also admits in his thoughts that until he learns how to tell the difference between effective and ineffective potions, there is no other safe option for him. After thinking it over, he finally decides to take one and asks her to give him a bottle. He reaches into his pouch, takes out 1,000 yen, and hands it to her in exchange for the potion. Taking the bottle in his hands, he opens it right there in the shop and begins to drink it. And the moment he takes the very first sip, he feels a sudden rush of energy as his entire body heals within seconds, erasing all the pain and fatigue he had been carrying. The change is so fast and complete that he instantly feels lighter, stronger, and more alert. And he cannot help but look at the bottle in amazement. almost as if he cannot believe the effect it just had on him. The shopkeeper watches him closely, and after taking a proper look at his face, she smiles warmly and tells him that he now looks much better than before. With a shy tone, Kikori replies to the shopkeeper that he is really thankful to her for helping him and for the potion that healed him so quickly. The shopkeeper, still smiling, asks if there is anything else he would like to buy while he is here in the store. Thinking for a moment, Kikori says that he would like her to recommend something for him, since she clearly knows more about what an adventurer needs. She looks at him carefully from head to toe and tells him that, judging by his current physical condition, his body is still not ready to handle heavy equipment. So instead of buying something too big or heavy, she suggests that he should purchase the round shield displayed nearby, which costs 4,000 yen. The moment he hears the price, a small bead of sweat runs down his face because the amount feels shockingly high compared to his limited budget. In a low voice, almost to himself, he whispers that the shield actually suits his fighting style very well, but the problem is that it costs 4,000 yen, and he also still needs to buy armor to protect his body. The shopkeeper studies his expression and then tells him that, from the look on his face, she can guess that he is not planning to buy the shield but is instead more interested in getting armor. She says that is fine too, but warns him that it will still cost him extra money later if he decides to adjust the size of the shield to fit his body properly. Then, with a more serious tone, she recommends that when the time comes for him to purchase armor, he must not make any compromises on its quality, because armor is the thing that will protect his life, and for that reason, he must choose a strong and well-made one of high quality. The shopkeeper further explains to Kikori that once he starts wearing armor, there is a real risk that he might become arrogant without even realizing it. And in this line of work, dying because of overconfidence is something that happens all the time, even to experienced adventurers. Hearing this, Kikori takes her words seriously and begins to think carefully about what his most necessary requirements are at the moment and which piece of equipment would suit his fighting style best. He goes over the options in his mind, weighing the benefits of armor against the shield she had recommended earlier, and after a short but focused moment of thought, he finally decides that he will take the round shield she suggested. When he tells her this, the shopkeeper smiles and says that his choice is a really good one and that the shield will serve him well. Kikori replies in a determined tone that he will do his best to make full use of it in his battles. She smiles warmly again and tells him to earn as much money as possible with that shield so that the investment he has made will prove to be worthwhile. He understands her meaning and feels motivated because having a new and reliable piece of equipment will definitely make hunting monsters more effective and safer for him. With the purchase complete, Kikori now has the shield in his possession, and he feels a small sense of achievement. But he also knows that the day has been long and tiring. Thinking about tomorrow's work, he decides that it is now time to get some proper rest so that he can be fully prepared for the challenges of the next day. The next day, instead of looking fresh and well-rested, Kikori appears completely exhausted, and the main reason behind this is his stay at the cheap 1,000 yen per night inn. During the night, he had been too worried about his new shield being stolen, so he tied it tightly to himself while sleeping, which made it hard for him to rest properly. His caution was not without reason, as he had noticed that many other guests in the inn had their belongings stolen overnight, and several people were missing their luggage by morning. Seeing this, Kikori makes up his mind that he must earn more money as soon as possible so that he can afford a private room where he can rest without fear of theft. With this thought, he pushes away his tiredness and continues his quest for the day. Just like the other adventurers, he heads outside the city gates, determined to make progress. This time, he chooses to venture deeper into the area, hoping for better opportunities, and before long, he comes across a goblin. The creature is not even looking in his direction, giving him a possible advantage. Kikori quickly hides behind a nearby tree, waiting for the right moment to strike. Gathering his strength, he suddenly charges at the goblin with his axe raised, ready to behead it. However, just as the blade is about to land, a knife flies out of nowhere and pierces him. Shocked, he stares down in confusion at the wound, wondering what happened, and then takes a closer look around, finally realizing that another goblin had been hiding nearby the entire time. The realization hits him hard, and he cannot believe that he has allowed himself to become careless once again. Before he can react properly, the hidden goblin rushes forward, striking him with a heavy mace that sends him flying backwards. Gritting his teeth, Kikori gets back up and tries to counterattack with his axe, but the goblins are fast, dodging his swings easily and launching quick counterattacks against him each time. Then, in the middle of the fight, One of the goblins suddenly swings its weapon with all its strength and lands a powerful blow directly on Kikori's head. The force of the hit is so strong that he collapses to the ground instantly, his vision blurring as a sharp pain spreads through his skull. In that moment, he feels a terrifying sense that he is about to die. But even with that fear creeping in, a stubborn part of him refuses to give up. His breathing is heavy and his body is trembling. Yet he forces himself to focus as both goblins slowly approach him, their movements filled with the confidence of predators closing in on wounded prey. One of them steps forward and raises its mace high into the air, preparing to deliver another crushing blow to his head and finish him off for good. However, just as the weapon comes swinging down, Kikori manages to raise his newly purchased round shield in time, blocking the strike with a loud metallic thud. Using the same shield, he immediately bashes it forward with all his strength, slamming it into the goblin's face. Fueled by frustration and rage, he shouts in a voice full of anger that they have chosen the wrong person to mess with. Without giving the goblin a chance to recover, he keeps striking at its head again and again with his shield, each blow harder than the last, until the head is completely crushed and the creature's body goes limp. The brutal sight makes the second goblin's eyes widen in horror, and in its fear, it quite literally soils itself before deciding to run away. But there is no escape from Kikori's fury. His rage drives him forward, and in just a few moments, the second goblin also meets the same fate, falling dead at his hands. After all the exhausting and painful work of the day, Kikori finally returns to the guild hall, his body aching and his clothes dirtied from the battle, to exchange the magic stones he collected. For killing 2 goblins, he receives 2,000 yen as his reward. Still feeling the sting of his injuries, and knowing that his body will not recover on its own quickly enough, he makes his way down to the store in the basement to buy another potion. As he steps inside, the shopkeeper, Arya, is sitting on her chair, relaxed. But the moment her eyes fall on him, her expression changes instantly to one of deep worry as she sees the terrible condition he is in. Without hesitation, she grabs a potion from the shelf, opens it, and immediately pours it into his mouth, not even asking for payment first. As soon as the liquid touches his tongue and slides down his throat, the magic of the potion works instantly, and the pain in his body vanishes, his wounds closing and his energy returning in just a few moments. Kikori thanks her sincerely, but she continues to look at him with concern and asks how he ended up in such a state. He tells her honestly that he was lured into an ambush. Hearing this, she replies with a serious tone that in the outside world, it is always a matter of kill or be killed, and the reason he got so badly injured was because he let his guard down at the wrong moment. Kikori admits that the previous day's battles had not felt as hard, so he underestimated the monsters this time. She gives him a confused look and points out that yesterday had not exactly been easy either, because he was badly injured then as well. After a brief pause, she changes the subject and asks how the shield was in battle. Kikori expresses his gratitude, telling her that it was only because of the shield that he survived the attack, and he thanks her again for recommending it. She smiles pleasantly at his words. Then, with a curious tone, she asks him what his name is. He tells her that it is Kikori, but she laughs lightly and says that his name sounds strange, so it must be something he gave to himself rather than his real one. After this short exchange, she introduces herself properly as Arya. Without explaining much, Arya then tells him to wait outside for a while. Kikori steps out of the shop, leaning against the wall and wondering why she suddenly made him wait. His mind drifts to wild guesses, and he even mutters out loud whether she is planning to make him her slave as punishment for not buying enough equipment from her store. Before he can think much more, Arya comes out of the store carrying a full set of body armor, a shield, and a large weapon in her hands. Looking directly at him with a confident and cheerful smile, she tells him firmly that she would never do such a thing, and instead, she announces that she is going to teach him how to hunt. Kikori still cannot fully believe what he is seeing as Arya stands before him dressed in a complete adventurer's outfit, looking ready for battle, the image so different from how she usually appears behind the counter in her shop. She tells him directly to come with her, speaking as if the matter is already decided. Feeling confused, Kikori asks where exactly she is planning to take him. Arya replies without hesitation that since he has to pay his rent as well, he must go out and earn money, and this is exactly what they are going to do. Kikori frowns slightly and tells her that this is his own problem to solve, then asks if she is truly fine with getting involved in it. She tilts her head and responds with a question of her own, asking what there even is to be fine about. Kikori admits that he will feel bad if another adventurer helps him in his personal matters, At this, Arya steps closer to him, leaning in near his face, and tells him that she had thought about something yesterday too, that he does not sound like a child at all when he speaks. Hearing this, Kikori becomes nervous and tries to explain that the reason he speaks and acts that way is because he has always lived alone, which made him grow up faster than most. Arya nods slightly and says that it is a good thing, and that for her, supporting someone with potential is also part of her job. Kikori asks her if she is actually serious about wanting to help him, and she answers that everyone has their own way of helping people, such as recommending a job with a good salary or giving advice that could improve their life. Still puzzled, he asks her why she personally wants to do it for him. She responds by introducing herself again, but then gives him a slightly teasing scolding, telling him never to make a woman introduce herself so many times. After that, she finally tells him that the reason she wants to help him is probably because she likes him a little bit, and so she wants to stand by his side. The sudden confession makes Kikori completely flustered, his eyes widening and his mind racing as he feels his nervousness rising. Seeing his reaction, Arya bursts into laughter, clearly amused by how easily he becomes unsettled. Arya tells Kikori that they should start moving now, and both of them continue deeper into the contaminated area. The air becomes heavier as they walk, the faint smell of decay lingering, and Kikori looks around cautiously. After a few minutes, he tells her that it might be dangerous for them if they keep going further inside. Arya agrees with his point, but then explains that while goblins are not very smart, they are also not completely foolish either. She tells him that from a human's perspective, the deeper they go into such areas, the stronger and more dangerous the monsters become. But from a monster's perspective, if they start from the other side of the territory, the deeper they go, the weaker their enemies will be. She says that for the stronger monsters, this difference might only mean a slight change in challenge, but for weaker monsters, this knowledge can be a huge advantage for survival. She warns him to think about what might happen if a goblin managed to survive deep inside and then return to share this information with others of its kind. Kikori understands her point and says that in that case, they should head closer to the hero's gate, where weaker adventurers usually stay. Arya nods and tells him that he is exactly right, and that this is the same principle that shaped the monster distribution map. She adds that goblins will surely try to use different plans to improve their hunting skills and strategies. Hearing this, Kikori is reminded of his previous mission, when a goblin had deliberately shown him an opening in its defense, tricking him into lowering his guard and almost costing him his life. Arya tells him that there is a way they can avoid such situations, and he immediately asks her what it is. She simply replies that she will show him, then walks a few steps forward with a calm but focused expression, taking in the surroundings with a quick scan. Kikori watches her closely, his curiosity growing, wondering what exactly she is about to do. Without another word, she suddenly takes a deep breath, plants her feet firmly on the ground, and lets out a powerful, echoing shout that carries through the forest. At first, Kikori thinks she's just yelling, but then he feels a wave of heavy pressure rush over him, the unmistakable force of her killing intent spreading in all directions like a shockwave. The air around them seems to grow colder, and the forest falls silent for a brief moment before the sound of rustling leaves fills the air. From the shadows, two goblins and a rabbit-like monster leap out, their eyes glinting with hostility. Arya reacts instantly, her sharp reflexes, allowing her to dodge the rabbit-like monster's attack while sidestepping the goblin. In one fluid motion, she slashes through the rabbit-like creature, killing it instantly, its body collapsing to the ground. One of the goblins, startled and frightened by her speed, turns to run, but she does not allow it to escape. With a swift throw of her weapon, she strikes its neck cleanly, severing its head before it can even scream. The last goblin stands frozen, its legs trembling as fear takes over, but Arya shows no hesitation. With a single, precise strike, she ends its life instantly. Kikori looks at Arya in complete amusement, feeling surprised and impressed as he wonders how she is able to kill two enemies in an instant. And in that moment, he realizes that she is much stronger than she appears. Arya then looks at him with a smile and explains that what she just did was a war cry, telling him that it is a special skill used to get the attention of enemies and make them flinch for a short moment, giving an advantage in battle. She says that it is important for him to know how to do it as well and tells him that he should try it right at that instant. Kikori, still a little confused, looks at her without saying anything, so she adds that she will train him and make sure he learns how to do it properly. Kikori then asks her if using a war cry would also reveal his location to the enemies, to which Arya replies that it is not really a problem even if it gets revealed. Kikori insists that if a clever or careful enemy is around, they might quickly notice their position and set up an ambush against them. Arya thinks for a moment and agrees that he is right. But she adds that even then, it will not be a problem for them because they will not lower their guard for even a second, as they already know that they might get ambushed and will be ready for it. Then she says that the war cry is usually used in short fights, where quick intimidation can turn the tide. And so, in other words, it is a skill which will only make one die faster if one accidentally calls out to a strong enemy without being prepared. Kikori tells her not to say such things so casually, but she continues, adding that there are mostly weak enemies in that area, which means the chance of a truly strong enemy appearing is very low. Moreover, she explains, a very strong enemy does not even care about the roar of small fries, so they can say that the number of enemies which a war cry can actually affect is very small in reality. He nods slowly, making an expression that says he finally understands her point. Arya then tells him that if he really understands, then he should give it a try right now. He takes a deep breath, gathering himself, and then tries the war cry again and again, but it is still too small and unconvincing. Not a single monster shows up in response. Arya tilts her head and asks him if he is embarrassed to shout in front of her, or if someone has perhaps stolen his voice entirely. Kikori replies with frustration that he is trying his best, but Arya feels that his cry lacks any killing intent. She steps closer to him, looking straight into his eyes, and says that he must be fully dedicated, with the intent and conviction that he will kill everything around him if needed. Then she explains further that the principle of a war cry is not just about shouting. It is a way to steel one's own resolve, a way to gather one's strength, and above all, a way to communicate to the enemy with absolute certainty that he will kill them without hesitation. Hearing her words, Kikori finally understands the depth behind the skill, and he straightens his posture, deciding to try it once more with true determination. Kikori shouts from the depth of his heart, full of rage, saying that he will kill all of them, and at that very moment, 3 goblins come out from the bushes holding swords and maces in their hands, ready to attack him. Without wasting even a second, he quickly takes out his axe and rushes forward, striking the one in the front with a powerful blow that kills it instantly. And then, without stopping, he turns to the second one and smashes its head with his shield, crushing it completely. The third goblin swings its mace and hits Kikori on the head, but he does not even flinch or step back. Instead, with an intense bloodlust in his eyes, he looks straight at the goblin, and the goblin immediately understands that Kikori is going to be his death. Kikori says out loud that he will kill him, and in the very next moment, he swings his axe with great force and cuts the goblin's head in half, ending its life instantly. After killing all of them, he slowly walks over to Arya, and she tells him that now he can use Warcry properly. As they are talking, his eyes fall on a small rabbit-like monster that is trying to hide nearby, and he tells her that it looks like he has probably missed one. Arya calmly replies that it is fine because he owes her one, and then she adds that when she first met him, she thought he had no talent to be an adventurer, but now she realizes he has another valuable quality, which is that he always listens to others very carefully. He looks at her with a slightly uncertain expression and asks if she truly means that he has no talent at all, or if she is simply teasing him. Arya tilts her head slightly and asks in return whether anyone from the reception had ever told their name to him. Kikori thinks back for a moment, recalling all his interactions, and admits that no one has ever introduced themselves to him. A faint smirk forms on Arya's lips, as she explains that if the reception staff see any real potential in someone, they make a point to tell their name during their very first meeting. Kikori's shoulders drop a little as he remembers that he has met them several times already, and yet no such thing has happened. Seeing his gloomy look, Arya says in a matter-of-fact tone that they probably assumed he wouldn't live long enough for it to matter. Embarrassed, he lowers his gaze for a moment before quietly asking why she decided to help him in the first place. Arya's expression softens, and with a serene smile, she tells him it's because she has taken a liking to him. Then she glances up toward the darkening sky and remarks that they should start heading back, because once night falls, the contaminated area becomes far more dangerous. Both of them make their way toward the city again, the streets now quieter than before. Kikori notices that every shop and stall along the road has already closed, their shutters firmly in place, and a small sense of worry stirs in him. He mutters that he needs to return to his inn, but before that, he must stop by the guild to collect the money. Arya, with a face full of regret, explains to him that all the inns that charge 1,000 yen per night are most likely already fully booked, and the more expensive high-end inns are also not an option for him, because those places are meant only for experienced adventurers who prefer to stay away from beginners. Hearing this, he makes a gloomy and disappointed face and says that if that is the case, then he will simply go and sleep near the hero's gate, as at least that place has some security and he will be somewhat safe there. Arya smiles gently and tells him that it is a good thing that he wants to try to survive on his own without depending too much on other people. Then, without any warning, she suddenly holds his hand firmly and starts running, pulling him along with her. Surprised and confused, he quickly asks where she is taking him, but she tells him that they are going to her house. Embarrassed, he tries to resist and stop her, thinking that it could be inappropriate for him to go there, but she insists firmly, saying that she is the one responsible for making him return late, so she feels it is only right to take him with her. Arya keeps insisting and tells Kikori that she is the one who made him come back late, so he has no reason to refuse her. Kikori still finds it hard to believe that she is taking him to her own home. As they walk, his mind is filled with the same heavy thought that he is nothing more than a bothersome boy who was thrown out of his own village for being a cursed child, someone who carries only trouble and has nothing to offer in return for her kindness. When they finally reach her home, he hesitates and asks her if it is really okay for him to stay there. She looks at him with a questioning expression and asks what he means by that. He tries to explain, saying that she is allowing a strange man she does not know to stay at her place and wonders if she does this often. At that, she bursts into laughter, loud and confident, and tells him that if he thinks he can take her, then he is welcome to try. Her sudden boldness catches him off guard, and he feels his face heating up as he blushes. She notices his reaction right away and says that, judging from the look on his face, she can already tell that the answer is no. They step inside her house, and without wasting time, she hands him a set of clothes and tells him to take a shower first. Kikori stares at her for a moment, still wondering what kind of girl she really is, because in his village, no one ever looked at him with kindness. Everyone treated him with hate and fear. Arya then tells him to take off his clothes and give them to her so that she can wash them. He tries to protest, saying that he should do it himself, but she does not give him a chance. She simply takes his clothes from his hands and pushes him gently yet firmly into the bathroom. Standing inside, Kikori suddenly feels a warm smile forming on his face. The realization makes him flustered, and he quickly covers his mouth and cheeks, feeling shy at his own reaction. He cannot remember the last time he smiled like this, and he cannot believe that he is doing it now. The truth is, talking to Arya feels completely different from talking to anyone else. There is a strange warmth in his heart, a warmth he has never received from anyone before, and it unsettles him so much that he starts wondering if he even deserves to feel something like this. As he sits in the wooden bathtub, letting the warm water surround him, he keeps thinking about that warmth, unable to decide if it is something he should accept or something he should fear. Later, after his bath, Arya begins teaching him how to read and write, guiding his hand patiently over the letters, and also shows him how to do simple chores around the house. Kikori quietly follows her instructions, but deep inside, he keeps telling himself that for some reason he does not fully understand. He is afraid of this strange warmth that Arya is giving him, because it is something he has never known. The night passes peacefully, and by the time the first light of the morning enters through the windows, the quiet house begins to feel warm with the soft glow of the sun. Arya calls out to Kikori in a clear voice, asking him to come to the kitchen and help her prepare breakfast. At that moment, Kikori is sitting at the table, bent slightly forward, holding a pen as he writes carefully in the notebook Arya has given him. Over the past few days, he has learned many things from her, especially about magic stones, how they are not only rare and beautiful but can also be used in everyday life as a source of power for electricity or gas. These lessons are new and exciting to him, and he tries to write them down so he can remember them. When he hears her call again, he closes the notebook and stands up, making his way towards the kitchen. Arya, busy with the preparations, turns to him and tells him to bring the bacon from the fridge. He stops for a moment and looks at her with a puzzled expression, unsure what she means. She notices the confusion in his eyes and tilts her head slightly before asking if he knows what a fridge is. The way he stares back at her, with no sign of recognition, makes her realize immediately that he has absolutely no idea. She tells him that she thought fridges were also common in the countryside, speaking in a slightly surprised tone. At her words, Kikori feels a sudden wave of nervousness rise inside him. He quickly tries to think of something to say that will not reveal too much about himself. In a rush, he tells her that he did not have one in his home, but there was a shrine nearby that had one, and he had always been curious about it from the beginning. He hopes this explanation will be enough. Wanting to shift the topic away from the fridge, he looks around the kitchen and asks her about the device that is producing the small, controlled flames in front of her. She glances at the stove and replies simply that it is called a gas stove. The answer makes Kikori feel a quiet sense of relief, because he realizes that, at least for now, he has managed to steer the conversation away from anything that might hint at his true identity as a cursed child. There are many magic stone appliances in Arya's house, things that Kikori feels he should not even have seen in his life, yet somehow he still has a rough idea of how to use most of them. He looks around at the strange devices, feeling a quiet sense of familiarity, and begins to wonder to himself if this knowledge is coming from the memories of his past life. In his mind, he thinks that he has never once considered himself to be some special existence in the world, but perhaps there were others before him, many cursed ones like him who might have walked the same path. The thought lingers as he imagines how different things might have been if the memories of his past life were not so faded and broken. He feels certain that if those memories were clear, he could probably take the ideas hidden inside them and use them to invent new things, earn money, and build a better life, instead of having to live in danger and constantly risk his life like he does now. As these thoughts continue to fill his mind, Arya notices him standing silently in the same spot, his eyes looking distant as if he is staring at something far away. She tilts her head slightly and, in a quiet whisper meant only for herself, says that he really is a strange kid. Her voice is soft, but Kikori does not react, still caught in his own thoughts. After a short while, they both move to the table and eat the breakfast together in calm silence, the simple sounds of eating filling the room. When they finish, Arya turns to him and asks if he remembers the book that he had read yesterday. Kikori looks at her, a small and confident smile forming on his face, and replies that he remembers each and every word written in that book. In that case, Arya says that she wants to take a test of Kikori to see how much he has learned. She takes out a folded piece of paper from herself and hands it to him, telling him to read it. Kikori takes the paper in his hands and, as soon as he looks at it, he realizes that it is the same piece of paper he had received from the receptionist a few days ago. The sight of it brings back the memory of that moment. And this time, with the things Arya has taught him, he slowly begins to read the words written on it. To his own surprise, he is able to read it successfully without any trouble. As he reads, he realizes for the first time that the receptionist's name is Irene, and that name had always been there in front of him, but he had not been able to recognize it before. He continues reading and finds that the paper also mentions that if he can read this document, then he will be recommended to take on another quest, but at the same time, he must not speak about the content of this paper to anyone else. As he thinks about the meaning behind these words, he understands that this city is basically a frontline defense city, a place where many great warriors gather from different places. However, he also realizes that no matter how strong a person is, if they do not have even the most basic knowledge, they will always pose a security risk to the city. For this reason, being able to read is set as one of the basic standards for anyone who wants to work or live here. Kikori feels a deep sense of shame when he thinks about how the receptionist had not even told him her name and had instead tested him using this paper without saying anything. The thought makes him lower his head slightly, but before he can say anything, Arya looks at him with a gentle smile and explains that it is simply a protocol meant to maintain the city's security. She adds that, even though being able to read is important, they still always give everyone requests that are suitable for their abilities, whether they can read or not. Hearing this should have been a comfort, but Kikori's expression grows gloomy, and he quietly says that he feels like he is actually of no hope. Arya responds in a soft and reassuring voice, telling him not to feel bad about it, because even if he has no talent to become an adventurer, she will still always support him no matter what. Her words carry warmth, and for a moment he feels lighter, though he does not show it openly. After that, she changes the topic and asks him if he has any plans for the day. Kikori replies that he is planning to go hunting so he can earn enough money to afford staying at an inn. Arya then asks if he has some time to spare before going for the hunt, because she wants to introduce him to someone. Hearing this, Kikori becomes curious and begins to wonder who exactly he will be meeting. Arya tells Kikori that before doing anything else for the day, they should first go to the guild and exchange the stones they have for cash so they can use the money later. Kikori, not entirely sure what she has planned, looks at her curiously and asks where exactly they are going after that. Arya only gives a small smile and tells him to wait a bit and see for himself when they get there. Without saying more, both of them change into their usual outfits and step out into the street. the morning air still cool around them. Arya walks ahead at a steady pace, while Kikori follows beside her, his mind full of guesses about their destination. After a short walk through the lively streets, she stops in front of a certain building. Kikori looks up at the signboard hanging above the entrance and decides to try reading it, remembering all the reading practice Arya has been giving him recently. To his own delight, he manages to read the words without hesitation, and they say, "Weapon store." Feeling a rush of pride, he quickly tells Arya what it says. She smiles warmly at him, pleased, and tells him that he is correct. The two of them then walk into the shop together. As they step inside, Arya explains that she is quite close to the owner of the place, and that the shop is known for selling good quality weapons at cheap prices, which is why she prefers coming here. Kikori's eyes widen as he looks around the store at the neat rows of swords, spears, bows, and other weapons, each one shining slightly under the light. With an excited tone, he says that everything here looks so amazing. Just then, from a small cabin at the back of the store, a voice calls out, asking who is there. Arya replies in a friendly tone that it has been a while since they last met. Mirug. A moment later, the cabin door opens, and stepping out is a scary-looking yet beautiful lady with sharp, pointed ears, her confident presence instantly drawing attention as she approaches them. Kikori looks at the pointed-eared woman with a mix of curiosity and amusement, quietly wondering to himself if she might be an elf. Mirug notices his expression and tells him that he should not be so shocked to see her, because elves are actually quite common in many places. Hearing this, Kikori feels a little embarrassed and nervously admits that it is his first time meeting one. Mirug raises an eyebrow and asks him what kind of countryside he had lived in to have never seen an elf before, but she does not wait for him to answer and instead changes the topic by asking what their budget is for buying equipment. Kikori replies that he has about 10 yen with him. Arya then turns to him and asks if he has any plan or preference for getting a full body armor. Before Kikori can answer, Mirug explains that with the amount of money he has, it would be better to buy separate armor parts rather than a full set, as that would give him better protection within his budget. Arya agrees with her and recommends that they should focus on buying armor parts for the arms and legs first. Kikori then asks why they should not buy armor for the head as well. Arya explains that monsters can aim for the gaps in helmets, and if the enemy is strong, they can crush a helmet completely, making it useless and a waste of money, so it is better not to buy one. Mirug adds firmly that if he ever lets his head take a direct hit, then it will be the end for him anyway. Mirug then recommends a few pieces of body armor for Kikori, choosing parts that would fit well with his size and budget, and tells him to try them on. Kikori takes the armor pieces and puts them on one by one, adjusting the straps carefully. When he is fully wearing them, he moves around a little and notices that they fit him perfectly, both in size and comfort. Mirug looks at him with a satisfied expression and says that she will sell all of the body parts armor to him for exactly 10 yen, which is his full budget. Arya turns to Kikori and asks how he feels wearing them. With excitement in his voice, Kikori says that it feels so cool, and he thanks Mirug many times for helping him find something so fitting. Mirug, however, reminds him seriously that he should never depend completely on his armor, because in a fight against a strong enemy like an orc, the armor could get destroyed at any moment. Kikori nods and promises that he will definitely remember her advice. Curious, Mirug then asks what his name is. He replies simply that his name is Kikori. Upon hearing it, Mirug frowns slightly and says that it is a stupid name because she expected something more interesting. Arya, however, smiles and says that she is starting to think his name is actually cute. Mirug looks at her with a questioning expression and points out that Arya rarely brings anyone to her shop, but now she seems to be supporting Kikori quite a lot. Without hesitation, Arya wraps her arms around Kikori in a playful hug and says that he is so cute and that she is not going to give him to Mirug or to anyone else. Arya and Kikori tell each other that it is time for them to leave now and continue with their plans for the day. However, just as they are about to step out of the weapon shop, Mirug calls out to Kikori and tells him to wait a moment. She says that if he ever needs a local expert when it comes to weapons or advice about fighting, then she is definitely the right person to come to. She warns him that she does not know how long his current axe will last in battle, especially against strong monsters, so he should be careful and try to earn enough money to buy a replacement weapon when it breaks or becomes useless. Kikori nods and replies with a clear yes, showing that he understands and will remember her words. After this, both Kikori and Arya leave the shop together. As they walk away, Kikori quietly whispers to himself that if he wants to make more money in the future, he will need to have a stronger weapon, and that means he must go out hunting more often and face stronger monsters. This time, he decides to go alone into the contaminated area, but he feels more confident because he is now wearing his new body armor. The armor makes him feel like a real adventurer, ready to face any danger. While he is moving carefully through the dangerous place, suddenly a monster rabbit jumps out of nowhere and attacks him. Kikori quickly reacts and kicks the rabbit with his leg, but the kick is not enough to bring the rabbit down. The rabbit immediately charges at him again, and this time Kikori swings his axe to strike it. However, the rabbit moves quickly and dodges the axe, then attacks him from the side. In that moment, Kikori feels a sudden fear and thinks that he might die from this attack. But then he remembers that he has a shield with him. Without hesitation, he raises the shield to block the rabbit's hit. The rabbit's attack strikes the shield with force, and Kikori takes this chance to fight back. He swings his axe strongly and manages to cut the rabbit, finally defeating it. Kikori quietly realizes to himself that Irene was correct in thinking of him as talentless, because he almost died fighting a horned rabbit, a fight that should have been easy for an adventurer. He whispers softly that nothing has really changed, even after he started wearing armor to protect himself. Feeling tired and a bit disappointed in his own weakness, he slowly tries to stand back up on his feet, taking a long, deep breath to calm his mind and body. Then, with a sudden rush of intense bloodlust burning inside him, he lets out a loud war cry, hoping to attract more monsters and prove his strength through battle. Although he thinks about staying longer in the contaminated area to fight more enemies and earn better rewards, he quickly changes his mind because he has no idea what kinds of dangerous creatures might be hiding deeper inside where it is even more risky. So, deciding it is safer to leave, he starts walking toward the gate to exit the dangerous zone. Just as he is passing by, his eyes suddenly fall on a scene that makes his heart race. A goblin is being choked by a huge hand. Kikori feels his bloodlust grow even stronger at the sight of the struggle. He takes a quick but careful look to understand the situation better, and when he finally sees the attacker clearly, he cannot believe what he is looking at. Standing right there near the gate, where it should be safer and less dangerous, is a massive orc, a strong and frightening enemy that could easily cause serious trouble. Kikori cannot believe what he is seeing when a huge orc is standing right at the entrance of the forest, a place where he expected no such dangerous creature to appear. He quietly realizes that the orc has not noticed him yet, which gives him a small chance to escape without fighting. He begins to move slowly and carefully toward the gate, hoping to slip away without being seen or attacked. But suddenly, out of nowhere, something hits him hard from behind, and he falls down to the ground immediately. When he looks back, Kikori sees that it is the dead goblin, the same one the orc was choking just moments before, that has been thrown in his direction. Then, he hears heavy, large footsteps coming closer toward him. Kikori quickly looks up and finds the orc standing right in front of him, blocking any chance of escape. He remembers the advice Mirug had given him about how to fight strong enemies like this, and knows that his only way out is to gather all of his killing intent and release it in a powerful burst. But just as he tries to prepare himself, the orc lets out a loud, terrifying growl that shakes the air and stuns Kikori, making him freeze in fear for a moment. At that moment, Kikori realizes the truth. There is no chance for him to win a fight against such a strong and large creature, and the only smart decision he can make is to run away as fast as possible. Suddenly, the orc swings a huge wooden mace with great force at him, but Kikori barely manages to dodge the heavy blow by moving just in time. Even he is surprised at how fast he moved and how narrowly he escaped the attack. But in the next moment, the orc punches Kikori so hard that even though Kikori raises his shield to protect himself, the force of the blow sends him flying nearly 20 meters through the air. Kikori lands hard on the ground, feeling the pain spread through his body, knowing very well that just one more punch from the orc would be enough to turn him into nothing but dead meat. Realizing that he cannot hold back even a little if he wants to survive, Kikori gathers all his strength and decides to fight with everything he has. With a fierce shout, he charges at the orc again, swinging his axe with all his might. But the orc is fast and skilled, easily avoiding each and every one of Kikori's attacks. Then, with one powerful punch, the orc strikes Kikori again and sends him flying through the air once more. This time, Kikori crashes hard into a tree, feeling the rough bark against his back before falling to the ground. As he lies there, he wonders in disbelief how he is still alive after such a terrible hit. Slowly, he forces himself to grab his weapon again, pushing away the pain and fear. With sudden speed, he jumps up and runs as fast as he can toward the orc's hand, closing the distance in an instant. With an arrogant smile on his face, Kikori tells the orc that they are all the same, no matter how big or strong they are. Then, with a powerful strike of his axe, he damages the orc's hand. Without hesitation, he jumps very high into the air and, with one clean and strong slash, cuts the orc's head into two. The monster falls to the ground, blood pouring from where his head was split, finally defeated. Kikori feels a strong sense of relief and pride as he tells himself that he has finally beaten the orc, something he never thought he could do before. After the fight, he decides to go to Mirug's shop to show her what he has done. When he enters the store, he finds Mirug sitting at her desk, looking as usual calm and focused. She looks up as Kikori comes in and immediately asks if he has fought an orc recently. Kikori is surprised by her question and asks how she knows such a thing. Mirug explains that she can tell just by looking at the sword he is carrying because orcs usually use large weapons like swords and axes, and seeing his sword made it clear to her. Kikori then takes out the sword and shows it to her, asking if she could buy it from him. Mirug listens carefully but tells him that the weapons used by orcs are made especially for their size and strength, so they are not suitable for humans to use directly. However, she says she can take the metal from the weapons and reuse it by forging it into something else. Then Kikori shows her a bow he has, and asks if she can buy that as well. Mirug agrees and explains that it is very important to buy weapons from adventurers because if someone leaves their weapon in the forest and a goblin finds it, the goblin might use it to cause trouble. To prevent such problems, she says the city actually gives her money to buy back weapons from adventurers whenever possible. Kikori tells Mirug excitedly that he is going to do his very best to bring back more weapons from his hunts so that he can earn more money and become stronger with each trip. Mirug smiles at his determination and then tells him that if he also sells the magic stones he managed to take from the orc, he can make a lot more money than he expects, because magic stones are valuable and in high demand. Then, she asks him how far inside the contaminated area he actually went while wearing the new body armor she helped him buy. Kikori answers that he had not gone very deep at all, and was mostly just hanging around near the hero's gate, staying close to where it feels safer and less dangerous. Mirug looks at him with a puzzled expression, not expecting this answer, and asks him to repeat what he just said, because she is surprised to hear that. Kikori repeats that the orc he fought was actually killing a goblin right close to the gate, not deep inside the dangerous forest area as one might expect. Mirug thinks quietly for a moment, her face showing worry and concern. Then she looks directly at Kikori with seriousness, and tells him that he must report this incident to the guild immediately. Kikori, feeling confused and a little anxious, asks if there is something wrong with what he told her. Mirug explains seriously that it is truly a miracle that he survived after meeting an orc, because orcs have the strength and power to severely injure even a fully equipped and experienced adventurer with just one strong strike of their weapon. She tells him that she cannot understand why such a strong and dangerous monster would be found so close to the gate, which should be a safe area for adventurers and travelers. Mirug finishes by saying that she hopes she is just overthinking the whole situation. The next morning, Kikori enters the guild hall with a bright and cheerful smile on his face, feeling proud and hopeful about what he has accomplished. As soon as he arrives, he warmly greets Irene by saying good morning, which catches her off guard because she did not expect him to know her name so soon. She quickly realizes that he must have learned to read and recognize names, which makes her smile back at him warmly. Irene then asks Kikori if he has successfully completed his quest. Kikori confidently replies that he has made enough money from his recent hunting trip and has come to the guild to exchange the magic stones and other valuable items he collected for cash. Standing nearby, Gantz, another guild member who has been listening quietly, speaks up and tells Kikori that he is impressed that the young adventurer has survived this long in such a dangerous world. Gantz then asks if Kikori has come to exchange the Nibherb, a common herb that many adventurers collect. Kikori shakes his head and says that he has something different and much more valuable this time. He reaches into his pouch and carefully takes out a large, glowing magic stone, showing it to both Gantz and Irene. Both of them are shocked and amazed to see such a huge and powerful magic stone in Kikori's hands. Irene asks him carefully about the size and strength of the monster from which he managed to extract the magic stone. Kikori answers that the monster was an orc, a very strong and dangerous creature that few dare to fight. Gantz and Irene exchange surprised and concerned looks, finding it hard to believe that Kikori faced such a powerful enemy all by himself. They ask him again to make sure they understood correctly, wanting to hear more about how he managed to survive and defeat the orc alone. Then, Kikori carefully follows the advice Mirug had given him and tells Irene and Gantz about what he witnessed near the Hero Gate. He explains that he saw a large orc killing a goblin very close to the gate. Irene listens attentively and thinks quietly for a moment before asking Kikori if there was anything else strange or unusual besides the orc killing the goblin. Kikori replies honestly that there was nothing else abnormal, just the orc attacking the goblin so close to the gate. Irene nods slowly, telling him that she understands the situation better now, and promises that the guild will investigate the matter soon to make sure the city and its people remain safe from any unexpected threats. Then she smiles and tells Kikori that the guild will purchase all the magic stones he has collected from his hunts for a total of 17,000 yen, which is a very good price for someone just starting out. Hearing this amount, Kikori feels happy and excited because it means he can now afford better equipment and improve his skills. He then asks Irene if the magic stone from the orc alone is worth 10,000 yen since he also killed 7 other monsters besides the orc during his quest. Irene agrees with him and explains that the bigger and stronger the magic stone is, the higher its value will be, because stones from powerful monsters contain more energy and are much harder to find. Now Kikori begins to understand why so many adventurers are willing to risk their lives by going deep into the forest to hunt dangerous creatures like orcs, even though the danger is very high. However, Kikori thinks that for now, killing 10 goblins instead of 1 orc might be better for him because he still feels weak and inexperienced and wants to grow stronger slowly. Finally, Irene advises Kikori to check the announcement board at the guild regularly because many new requests and quests are posted there all the time, and some of them may offer good rewards and profit for adventurers like him. Kikori thanks her politely for the useful information but tells her that he will check the announcement board later, as he has other things he needs to focus on right now. After that, Kikori leaves the guild hall. After Kikori leaves the guild hall, Irene turns to Gantz and tells him that an orc appeared very close to the gate, and surprisingly, Kikori miraculously made it back alive after facing such a dangerous monster. Gantz responds by saying that even some veteran adventurers have been killed by something as small as a horned rabbit, which makes Kikori's story very unusual and almost the opposite of what normally happens to adventurers. Irene says she will report this incident to the guild so they can carry out a proper investigation into why such a strong monster was so close to the safe area. Then she tells Gantz to get back to his work, but before he leaves, Gantz asks if something is wrong with her mood today because she seems worried. Irene only nods silently, deep in thought, wondering what is really happening recently in the contaminated zone to cause so many strange events. Meanwhile, Kikori heads straight to the weapon store where Arya is waiting for him, greeting him as usual. However, Arya feels shocked this time because Kikori looks much healthier and stronger than before and is not almost dead or seriously injured like she expected. Kikori tells Arya that he also thought he would die when he first met that orc, but somehow he managed to survive. When Arya hears the word orc, her jaw drops in surprise, assuming that Kikori must have run away and escaped from the monster. But Kikori surprises her even more by telling her that he actually killed the orc. Arya looks him over carefully, checking his whole body for any other wounds or injuries from the fight, but to her amusement and relief, she finds that there are no other injuries at all. Then Kikori tells Arya that he has made a lot of money from his recent hunts, so now he wants to buy a better weapon that will help him fight stronger monsters more easily. Arya listens carefully and tells him that she is also worried about the condition of his current axe because it looks old and weak. Kikori remembers that Mirug had said the same thing earlier, which makes him wonder if his axe is really that bad. He asks Arya if his axe is actually in very poor condition. Arya agrees and tells him honestly that his axe is very bad and was not even made for fighting strong monsters like the ones he faces now. Kikori looks closely at his axe and realizes she is right. The weapon is small and looks fragile compared to the weapons others use. Then Arya tells him that since she is very familiar with axes and knows a lot about them, he should consider choosing another axe to use as his main weapon. She points with her fingers at a collection of new axes displayed nearby and tells him that he has many different choices to pick from, each with different sizes and strengths. Kikori looks at the huge axes with great excitement because they look powerful and strong, and he imagines how much easier fighting would be with one of those. But then Arya gently tells him that those huge axes are too heavy and difficult for him to handle right now, since he is still learning and not yet strong enough. So she picks up a smaller axe and hands it to him, asking what he thinks about this one. The new axe looks like a slightly upgraded and heavier version of his old axe, but made better. Arya explains that this new axe feels heavy because it is made of solid iron, which makes it stronger and more durable. Kikori admits that it feels heavy in his hands, but he believes that with practice and time, he will soon get used to the weight and be able to use it well in battle. Arya tells him that the axe is specially designed for fighting. Kikori decides that he will take it. Kikori asks Arya about the price of the new axe, and she tells him that it costs 7,000 yen, which makes him think about whether he should buy it now or later. After telling him the price, Arya suddenly asks if he can come over to her home that night. Kikori feels a little surprised by her invitation and replies that he would really appreciate spending time with her, but he does not want to trouble her any more than he already has. Arya firmly tells him that if he were truly bothering her, she would not even be talking to him like this, making it clear that she enjoys his company. Without giving him much chance to argue, she starts pushing him gently out of the shop and reminds him that he already knows the way to her house. Kikori walks away, feeling a strange and unfamiliar emotion, as he has never been treated so kindly and warmly by anyone in his whole life, and he is unsure how to respond to such kindness. Deep inside, he begins to wonder how Arya will react when she eventually finds out that he is a cursed one, a truth he has kept hidden from everyone. Trying to distract himself from these thoughts, he heads towards the town's announcement board to check if there are any new quests available. While reading the notices, he learns that the meat of a horned rabbit is worth 500 yen, which makes him regret killing some earlier without taking their meat, as he realizes he has lost an opportunity to earn extra money. After this, he decides to visit Mirug's shop. When he arrives, Mirug notices the weapon he is carrying and tells him that she was the one who gave it to the guild's weapon store and asked them to sell it on her behalf. Hearing this, Kikori feels a little awkward and apologizes to her even though he cannot explain exactly why he feels the need to. Mirug reassures him not to worry and tells him that it is fine because she is close friends with Arya, so there is no problem at all. She then asks him if he has come to her shop to sell his old weapon, and Kikori agrees to her question, telling her that he indeed wants to sell it and is wondering if she would be willing to buy it from him. Hearing this, she asks him to hand the weapon over to her so that she can take a proper and closer look at it before making any decision. Kikori passes it to her, and she examines it carefully from the blade to the handle, running her fingers along the edges and checking its balance. After looking at it for a moment, she lifts her eyes and asks him in a tone of mild surprise if he really killed an orc using that weapon. Kikori responds honestly, telling her that the axe is probably quite weak now and that just one more single strike would likely be enough to break it completely. And he also adds that the handle is in such a terrible condition that it feels unreliable to use. After hearing his words and thinking for a short while, Mirug decides that she will buy the weapon from him, saying that she is willing to pay 400 yen for it, and making it clear that this amount includes a little bonus from her side. She then looks at him and asks if there is anything else he needs at the moment. Kikori thinks for a moment and tells her that he actually wants to upgrade his armor. Mirug replies that she knows of one that would fit him perfectly, and then walks over to a display, taking out a cloth armor for him to see. She explains to him that although it is called cloth armor, the fabric is actually made from a monster's fur, which makes it a surprisingly durable material capable of withstanding light impacts or even stabbing attempts. Kikori, impressed by this, says that it sounds really cool. Mirug then tells him that its price is 2,000 yen. Kikori, seeing the quality, responds that the price really lives up to what it offers. However, Mirug, speaking in a slightly frustrated tone, tells him that he does not really understand its true worth, and explains that the one he is buying is actually very cheap because it is made from leftover monster fur, whereas a real and original one made from the main high-quality material would cost him at least double that amount. Kikori becomes speechless for a moment and, in a slow and quiet voice, says that he understands her point clearly, after which he carefully tries on the armor and also puts on a head armor along with it, adjusting the fit while she explains to him that the head armor is strong enough to withstand a sudden surprise strike from an enemy. And then she smiles warmly and says that he is now looking just like a real adventurer wearing that complete outfit, which makes him feel extremely excited and proud to see himself dressed in such gear. But she also speaks in a serious tone to remind him that no matter how strong or durable his armor might be, he should never place complete reliance on it during dangerous situations and must always remember to protect himself with his own skills, asking him to never forget her words. To which he sincerely replies that he will always remember and never forget. And after this short exchange, he slowly walks out of her store, noticing as he looks up at the sky that it has already turned completely dark, meaning that it is now too late for him to go out for hunting. And although he has enough money with him to afford staying at an inn for the night, he suddenly recalls Arya's earlier request and thinks deeply to himself that she must already be facing trouble because of him, yet she always speaks to him with kindness and tells him not to worry about it, which makes him feel increasingly frustrated and restless since he cannot decide what is truly the right thing to do. But after standing there for a while in thought, he finally decides that instead of staying at an inn, he will go to her house anyway to spend the night. The next day, Kikori steps out of Arya's house after spending the night there, remembering that before he left, she had kindly requested him to come to her house again. And while he walks along the path towards the contaminated area, he keeps wondering in his mind if it is really okay for her to keep inviting him like that, because the food she prepares for him is always delicious. The shower at her place feels refreshing and relaxing, and the sleep he gets there is far more comfortable than anything he could have elsewhere, which makes him feel even more determined to find some way to properly return her favor, though he still does not know how. As he reaches the contaminated area and steps into the forest, a horned rabbit suddenly jumps at him from out of nowhere, but this time he reacts quickly and easily dodges its attack before killing it with very little effort, feeling that it is becoming easier to deal with such creatures now that he has gotten used to fighting them. He remembers that there was a quest asking for horned rabbit meat and wonders for a moment if he should let it bleed out to take the meat, but since he has never had much experience handling or preparing meat, he decides to leave it there, even if it means sacrificing 500 yen worth of reward. Without stopping for long, he begins walking deeper into the forest, and before long he encounters a goblin, but he quickly realizes that this is a trap. This time, however, Kikori is fully prepared and decides that instead of avoiding it, he will act as if he is falling right into their trap, carefully waiting for the right moment, and just as all the other goblins reveal themselves and come out to attack, the goblins AG. Kikori begins fighting the goblins without hesitation, killing them one after another with steady and precise movements, making sure none of them has a chance to counterattack. In the middle of the fight, one goblin becomes frightened and tries to escape by climbing quickly to the top of a nearby tree, but Kikori, without wasting a moment, swings his weapon with full force, slicing through the trunk in a single powerful strike, causing the tree to crash to the ground. As the terrified goblin falls with it, Kikori moves in instantly and cuts its head cleanly into two halves before it can react. Once the battle is over, he carefully extracts the magic stones from the bodies of the fallen goblins, placing them away for later. Even though he has won, he notices that his body feels unusually weak, as exhaustion starts setting in after fighting only a few of them, and he admits to himself that no matter how much he improves his training, strength, or speed, his current body will always have its limits. He glances down at his hand, ready to count how much profit he has made from the day's hunt, but before he can finish the thought, a sudden and intense pain shoots through his back, forcing him to collapse to the ground instantly. Struggling to move, he slowly turns his head and sees, to his shock, that a massive goblin is standing right behind him, towering over him with a menacing presence. Kikori wonders why the huge goblin has suddenly appeared at such a moment, feeling that the timing could not be worse. As he studies its body, he notices the thick layers of muscle covering its frame and admits to himself that if he were to take even a single punch from it, he would almost certainly be killed instantly. However, the real danger is not just the giant in front of him but the smaller goblin standing slightly behind it, holding a magic staff in its grip. The sight makes him realize that the sharp pain he felt earlier was most likely the result of an attack from this smaller goblin. He does not understand how it came to possess such a weapon, but he knows that getting hit by magic again would be far too dangerous to risk. Deciding on a plan, he concludes that he must take down the larger goblin first before dealing with the magic user. He briefly considers using Warcry to intimidate his enemies, but he quickly discards the idea because it would almost certainly attract the attention of other monsters in the area, creating even more trouble than he can handle in his weakened state. With no better choice, he tightens his grip on his axe and charges directly towards the towering goblin, swinging his weapon in strong, rapid strikes aimed at its body. The large goblin counters with a heavy swing of its own axe, but Kikori reacts quickly, sidestepping the blow just in time and then leaping high into the air with all the strength he can muster. Using the momentum from his jump, he brings his axe down in a perfectly aimed strike, slicing clean through the goblin's head and splitting it into two halves in one decisive blow. The smaller goblin stares in shock at the lifeless body of the larger one lying on the ground, its eyes wide with fear, and soon it begins to panic, its breathing quick and unsteady as it realizes the danger it is in. In desperation, it quickly raises the staff clutched in its hands, points it toward Kikori, and hurriedly chants in an attempt to unleash another magical attack. But to its dismay, nothing happens this time. Understanding that its magic has failed and feeling the rising threat of death, the goblin decides that the only way to survive is to turn and run away as fast as it can. However, Kikori has already made up his mind not to let his opponent escape after attacking him. Without a moment's hesitation, he grips his axe tightly and, with all the force he can muster, throws it toward the retreating goblin. The axe spins rapidly through the air, glinting faintly in the dim light, before striking the goblin's neck with deadly precision and slicing its head clean off in a single swift motion. The goblin's body collapses to the ground instantly, lifeless and still. Kikori walks over to the fallen creature and picks up the staff it had been holding. In his hands, the staff feels no different from an ordinary piece of carved wood, giving him the impression that it lacks the ability to cast magic repeatedly, which would explain why the goblin's earlier attempt to attack him had failed. He stands there for a brief moment, gazing up at the darkening sky, and silently wishes that he could wield magic himself, imagining the possibilities it might offer him in battle. As night finally settles in, he makes his way once again to Arya's house to keep the promise he had made to her earlier. While sharing a quiet dinner with her, he looks at her with a determined expression and asks if she thinks he can learn to use magic as well. Arya responds confidently, saying she believes he can, even if the magic he desires is purely offensive in nature. Hearing this, Kikori nods and admits that with his current strength alone, he has no hope of defeating an orc, so he is resolved to strengthen himself further, learn new skills, and improve his abilities. Arya tells Kikori that magic is not as convincing or dependable as he seems to believe, and when Kikori asks her if this is because his magic power is too low, she explains clearly that it is not like that at all. She goes on to tell him that magic, at its core, is the result of the impact between two opposing forces, and much like with physical strength, if a person loses their magic power, they will not be able to do anything at all. She advises him that he will never truly understand his abilities or limits unless he checks and examines everything carefully for himself, but she also admits honestly that she personally feels he is not suited to become a wizard. Hearing this makes Kikori feel his hope of using magic slowly begin to break apart. However, Arya then tells him that a person who can use enough magic with great skill has the potential to fight in the way of a talented magical swordsman, which makes him curious and wonder what exactly she means by that. Seeing his interest, she suggests that if he wants to understand more clearly, he should read a certain book that explains it in detail. He agrees and takes the book from her, opening it and reading every page attentively until he finishes it completely. After some time, Arya asks him if he has finished reading, and he tells her that the book speaks of a remarkable genius who lived around 500 years ago and had mastered both swordsmanship and magic to an extraordinary degree. As he thinks about what he has read, Kikori realizes that the man had named his magic either Gunning or Guram, and he notices that this is a name he has definitely heard before, but never in this world, which leads him to the conclusion that this man must have come from another world, just like him. This thought stirs strong feelings within him, and he cannot help but feel jealous that the man was able to wield both sword and magic with such excellence, while he himself cannot, even though they share the same origin. The idea that someone with the same background as him could use magic but not him makes him frustrated. Arya notices the frustrated expression on Kikori's face and tries to calm him down, telling him that the story he just read is nothing more than a legend, and that, like many such tales, it has been exaggerated over time. She then explains to him that magic is something that works by imagining and focusing, and she adds that there are generally two kinds of people who use magic: those who prefer to study theory and those who possess a natural talent for it. This, she says, is the main reason why she does not recommend it to everyone, because the process of improving one's imagination is different for each person, and there is no fixed or consistent method that works the same for everyone. Kikori thinks about what she says for a moment and then admits to her that he is not very smart, so perhaps relying on strength is a better choice for him. After saying this, he tells her that he noticed a very interesting kind of magic in the book and wonders if it is possible for him to use it. He shows the specific spell to Arya, and she takes a look at it before telling him that it is a weapon-breaking spell. She explains that, according to the instructions written there, the spell can be performed by touching the enemy's weapon, and then strongly imagining that their weapon is crumbling apart. She also informs him that there are many people who use this magic, but she is not sure whether it will work against a strong opponent, because breaking a powerful weapon would require an equal amount of magic power, and that is something that is not very easy to achieve. Arya brings a broom in her hands and tells Kikori that if he wants to try the spell, then in that case he should first practice it on the broom. She explains that starting with something simple will make it easier for him to understand how it works. Kikori looks at the broom and asks her if she really thinks it will work. Arya calmly replies that it will not cost them anything to practice on a broom, and it is much better than trying it directly in a real battle where mistakes could be dangerous. Kikori nods and slowly takes hold of the broom. He looks at it for a moment, and then begins to imagine it crumbling into pieces. Closing his eyes tightly, he tries to focus all his attention on the image in his mind. He stays still for a few moments, concentrating, but then suddenly opens his eyes and looks at Arya with a silly and confused expression on his face. He asks her how he is even supposed to know what focusing magic power feels like, because he is not sure if he is doing it right. Arya blinks, realizing that she completely forgot to explain this part to him earlier. Without wasting time, she opens the magic book and turns to a page with an illustration, telling him that the picture will help him understand it more easily than words. Kikori looks at the page, but then his expression changes and he becomes serious. In a quiet voice, he tells her that he has no real talent for magic and that he needs a quick way to become stronger. Arya looks at him for a moment, then steps closer and wraps her arms around him. She holds him gently and slowly whispers in his ear that she knows he is doing his best. She says that she still would not call him talented, but reminds him that he has made real achievements through his own effort, and that many people who are far stronger than him usually lose their lives on their very first day. Kikori holds Arya by the shoulders and tells her firmly that no matter how weak he may be, he still wants to live. Arya looks at him with a gentle smile and says that he is right to think that way. She then asks him if he believes she would be happier seeing a wild flower that continues to bloom for as long as it can until the day it withers and falls, compared to seeing the beautiful flower that is praised like a hero but fades away far too quickly. Her words linger in the air as the night slowly comes to an end. When the next day arrives, Kikori begins his hunt with determination. The memory of the previous night gives him confidence, as he had successfully managed to destroy the broom using his magic power during practice. While moving through the area, a goblin suddenly appears and charges at him, but Kikori swiftly dodges its attack and strikes back, killing it instantly. After the fight, he notices the weapon the goblin was holding and decides to try using the Swordbreaker spell on it. He grips the weapon tightly and focuses, but to his surprise, there is no effect at all. He pauses, looking at the weapon and recalling how easily he was able to break the broom, even though it was not a weapon. This makes him stop and wonder if his ability might allow him to destroy anything he touches. For a brief moment, the thought excites him, but then his expression changes and he shakes his head, telling himself that there is no way such a thing could be possible. Kikori keeps walking deeper into the dense woods, his mind filled with the thought that he must learn a kind of magic that can be used as a strong and reliable weapon against powerful enemies like an orc. The forest feels heavier with every step he takes, and the air is thick with tension. Suddenly, a huge goblin emerges from the shadows ahead, blocking his way with an intimidating stance. A wave of frustration rushes through him, and gripping his weapon tightly, he charges forward with all his strength. The goblin reacts quickly, raising its sword to block his attack and immediately countering with a fast, heavy slash. Kikori narrowly avoids the strike, his breath quickening, and without wasting a moment, he tries to go for another blow. But before his attack can land, something solid and heavy crashes into him from the side with crushing force, sending his body hurtling through the air until he slams hard against a thick tree trunk. Pain surges through his entire body, forcing a cry of agony out of him. Forcing himself to look up, he sees the situation has worsened. There are now 3 massive goblins standing before him, all armed and ready to kill. His mind races as he realizes the grim truth. Even if he somehow manages to kill one of them, the remaining 2 will overwhelm him, leaving no chance for survival. Anger boils within him, and in that moment of desperation, he unleashes a loud, fierce war cry that echoes through the forest, shaking the air. One of the goblins, startled by his sudden burst of ferocity, instinctively takes a step back, fear flashing in its eyes. Kikori instantly notices this reaction and understands that this goblin is weaker than the others. Acting without hesitation, he dashes toward it with all the speed and strength he can muster, bringing his axe down in a clean, powerful strike that cuts deeply into the creature's leg, making it collapse with a howl of pain. But before he can even catch his breath or prepare for the next move, another goblin suddenly charges in from behind, swinging a massive wooden hammer with brutal force, and the weapon smashes into him, sending his body flying through the air once again and slamming him into the ground. Kikori struggles to push himself up from the ground, his body aching from the earlier blows, but before he can even get onto his feet, the goblin wielding the sword rushes forward and delivers a vicious kick straight to his chest. The force of the impact sends him crashing into a tree once more, the bark scraping his back as pain surges through him. The goblin does not waste any time and starts walking toward him with heavy steps, its eyes locked on him with the clear intention of delivering the final killing blow. Kikori's breathing becomes labored, but his mind works quickly. He reaches down and touches the goblin's leg, his fingers trembling, and mutters the word crumble under his breath. In an instant, the goblin's leg explodes in a violent burst, throwing it off balance and sending it crashing to the ground with a scream of pain. Seeing the chance he has been desperately waiting for, Kikori forces himself forward despite his agony and swings his axe with all the remaining strength in his arms, cleanly severing the goblin's head in one swift strike. The lifeless body collapses beside him, and the other two goblins, shocked by what they have just witnessed, exchange a glance filled with fear before turning and fleeing into the depths of the forest. Kikori, now alone, feels his energy slipping away rapidly. His entire body is drained, and a deep exhaustion takes over. He realizes with dread that his magic reserves are completely depleted and that he urgently needs to recover before he can move any further. With shaky hands, he pulls open his bag in search of a potion bottle, but to his dismay, every single one has been smashed, and their contents lost during the battle. A sharp weakness spreads through him as he becomes aware of the large amount of blood he has already lost, and before he can do anything else, his vision fades and he collapses unconscious onto the cold ground. But then a mysterious figure appears near him and tries to wake him up and asks him if he is still alive. Kikori finds himself surrounded by complete darkness, unable to see anything around him, and a strange stillness makes him wonder if he has already died. He remembers hearing that when a person dies, their soul must cross a river to reach the afterlife, and the thought makes him feel uneasy. In that emptiness, he recalls Arya's encouraging words and softly admits to himself that he has truly tried his best to survive. Even so, deep inside, he feels a strong desire to keep living no matter how weak or wounded he is. That determination stirs something within him, and suddenly his eyes snap open to find himself lying on the ground, realizing at once that someone has made him drink a potion. His blurry vision clears, and right in front of him stands a man with a face resembling that of a cat, watching him closely. He forces himself up quickly, but the sudden movement makes him start coughing heavily. The cat-faced man immediately tells him to stay calm and not strain himself. He then introduces himself as Kun and explains that he is also a new adventurer who happened to find Kikori after catching the scent of his blood while passing nearby. Hearing this, Kikori expresses his gratitude to Kun for saving his life. Kun, however, warns him that this is a dangerous area and points out that he has been far too reckless to be wandering around in such a condition. Kikori responds by offering 2 goblin magic stones in return for the potion, saying it is the least he can do to repay the help. Kun accepts the gesture with appreciation and then asks if the axe and shield lying near him belong to him. Kikori immediately pulls his weapons closer to his chest, holding them tightly, and says with quiet pride that he bought them using all the money he had. Kun nods but adds that while those were still with him, several smaller items that had been scattered around were already taken away by goblins before he arrived. Kun then asks Kikori if it is his first time seeing a beast man, and Kikori honestly admits that it is. Hearing this, Kun tells him that he does not need to use any honorifics when speaking to him, since both of them are of the same age. But Kikori explains that it is difficult for him to accurately guess the age of someone from a different race. After that, Kun mentions that he will be returning to the city soon, and asks Kikori what he plans to do next. Kikori replies that he will continue his hunt despite what just happened. Feeling curious, Kikori then asks Kun why he went out of his way to save him, and Kun answers that he has his own personal goals for doing so before asking Kikori to introduce himself properly. Kikori gives his name, and Kun, without hesitation, proposes that they should join forces and form a party. This offer surprises Kikori, who finds it hard to believe, and he points out that he almost died earlier. In response, Kun tells him that, even so, he managed to defeat 2 hobgoblins all by himself, and that is something impressive. Kikori agrees with him on that point, and Kun goes on to explain that hobgoblins come in different types, including ones that wear armor and others that fight using heavy hammers, and even he is not strong enough to take down those kinds yet. He then adds that the goblin with the hand guard that Kikori fought earlier is not an ordinary enemy, but actually a prized monster. This makes Kikori even more curious, so he asks exactly how much the prize on its head is. Kun calmly tells him that it is worth 50,000 yen. On hearing the amount, Kikori feels as if his whole world turns upside down, and a wave of instant regret washes over him when he realizes that he had been just one hit away from killing such a valuable target. Kun then points out that he had been on the brink of death while fighting that monster, emphasizing the danger he was in, and says that this is exactly the reason he wants to form a party with him. Kikori, however, responds by calling himself pathetic and weak, but Kun counters by saying that even though Kikori had been badly injured, he still feels regret over missing such a huge amount of money, which to Kun proves that Kikori truly has the spirit of a beast. Kikori shakes his head and insists again that he is someone with no real talent, and beyond that, he does not even enjoy fighting. He explains that what matters to him most is simply living a peaceful and ordinary life, and for him, the only possible way to achieve that is by becoming an adventurer. At this point, Kun suddenly speaks up and admits that he is the same as Kikori in that regard, because he too wishes to live a normal and quiet life. However, he adds that such a simple life requires a steady supply of money, and relying only on hunting small monsters is far from being an efficient way to earn enough for it. Kun points his finger toward himself with a confident expression and says that if he had been by Kikori's side during the fight, then Kikori would not have ended up losing that 50,000 yen reward. He then studies Kikori's face for a moment and remarks that, from the look in his eyes, he can easily tell that Kikori has doubts about his abilities. Kun goes on to explain that it is completely natural for him to feel that way, since the two of them know almost nothing about each other's skills, strengths, or ways of fighting, and they have never had the chance to fight side by side before. Because of that, Kun suggests with a calm but firm tone that they should try working together starting from the next day, as that would allow them to see how well they can cooperate and also give them time to understand each other better. Kikori listens to him and, after a brief moment of thought, smiles slightly before admitting that Kun is probably right. Seeing this, Kun smiles back with satisfaction and says that it is settled then. Kikori agrees and tells him that they will meet in front of the hero's gate the following day. With the matter decided, both of them walk together toward the guild to exchange the money they have earned from their recent work. As they walk, Kikori remarks in a casual tone that Kun is a very easy person to talk to and seems pleasant to be around. Hearing this, Kun responds with a lighthearted smile, saying that he is simply doing his best to act like a nice and friendly cat so that people will feel comfortable around him. Kikori then asks Kun if there are any other defensive cities like Nigrian, wanting to know more about the world outside. Kun replies that there are indeed other cities like it, and he goes on to explain in detail that the contaminated zone is so vast that no single kingdom can manage it alone. Because of this, each kingdom is responsible for guarding a specific part of the zone, and for that purpose, every kingdom has its own defense city positioned along the borders of the dangerous area. He further tells Kikori that the official name of this dangerous region is the Magic Power Contamination Zone. It is a place where magical energy exists naturally within the soil in high concentration, making the land different from ordinary places. This unnatural presence of magic not only turns the area into the perfect breeding ground for monsters, but it also harms humans who stay there for too long, often making them sick. Kun explains that the massive walls of the defense cities, along with the efforts of adventurers, stand as the only barrier protecting people's lives from the threats that come out of the contaminated zone. Listening quietly, Kikori tilts his head slightly upward, looking at the sky as if deep in thought about something. Noticing this, Kun asks him if something is wrong. Kikori shakes his head and answers that everything is fine before taking his leave for the day. The next morning, both of them meet as planned in front of the hero's gate and, without wasting time, head outside together to take on work and earn more money. As they enter the forest, they come across a horned rabbit, but Kun deals with it effortlessly, striking it down without much effort. After finishing it off, he lets out a sigh and tells Kikori that it feels boring to him, as if such encounters offer no real challenge. While they continue moving forward, Kikori's eyes suddenly catch sight of a goblin sitting quietly on the branch of a nearby tree, watching them from above. At the same time, from the front, a fully armored hobgoblin comes charging straight towards them at full speed. The hobgoblin stops just in front of them and raises his hand, pointing directly at Kikori in a way that almost feels like a personal challenge. Both Kikori and Kun cannot help but laugh at the sight, and Kun teasingly asks Kikori what he could have possibly done to make the goblin act like that. Without wasting much time, Kun tells Kikori to take care of the one sitting in the tree, and Kikori confidently assures him that he can leave that to him. As Kikori prepares to move, the armored hobgoblin suddenly lunges forward to attack him, but Kun steps in and blocks the attack, firmly telling the hobgoblin that he will be his opponent instead of Kikori. In that tense moment, both of them suddenly feel an unusual and unsettling sensation coming from behind. Kun turns his head to see what it is, and to his surprise, he finds himself shocked beyond belief when he realizes that the overwhelming pressure he feels is actually coming from Kikori's killing intent. Kikori smashes the goblin on the tree branch using his shield with a single powerful blow, ending the fight instantly. Seeing this, Kun feels that in such a situation he cannot allow himself to be outdone, as his own pride and strength are also on the line. Determined not to lose, he turns his full attention to the armored hobgoblin and begins striking him with a series of rapid and heavy punches, each blow landing with force until blood finally spills from the hobgoblin's mouth. At that moment, Kikori steps in swiftly, moving with precision, and delivers a clean strike that severs the hobgoblin's neck in an instant, finishing the battle completely. Kun looks at Kikori with admiration and tells him that he is truly incredible, saying that the way he won was overwhelming and left no doubt about his strength. Kikori replies modestly that it was only possible because Kun had already weakened the hobgoblin with his punches. Hearing this, Kun admits that he does not possess the raw power of the strongest beastmen, explaining that there are many different types, such as lions or rhinos, that are known for immense strength, while cats, like himself, are not as strong as those kinds. He points out that cat beastmen are instead known for their agility and speed, but they naturally lack in physical power. Kikori, however, tells him sincerely that he still believes Kun is remarkable and strong in his own way. Kun thanks him for the kind words, appreciating the compliment, but adds with a thoughtful tone that the lack of physical strength and certain combat skills is one of the main reasons why there are so few catmen living in Nirgen. Kun goes on to say that in the country most of the citizens follow the great god religion, but it does not suit him because he is a believer in the moon god religion. Hearing this, Kikori admits that he is not very familiar with matters of religion, explaining that he never studied much about such things, and then he asks Kun if it is a bad thing that he does not know about it. Kun assures him that it is completely fine and not something to worry about. He explains patiently that a person's faith usually depends on which divine temple they studied in during their learning years, and that is how most followers are formed. He adds that if someone's moon god magic does not align with the teachings or powers of the great god, then that person can sometimes feel a bit lonely or isolated in such a society. After saying this, Kun turns his gaze towards the lifeless body of the hobgoblin lying on the ground and notices that the monster has dropped a large amount of loot. He remarks that if they continue their journey while carrying such heavy items, their baggage will quickly become too burdensome to manage. Because of this, he suggests that they should head back instead of going forward. Kikori listens to him and agrees, saying that it would indeed be better to return now, and so they decide together to make their way back. They enter the guild hall together, and as soon as they step inside, Irene notices them and looks in their direction before asking Kun if they have already formed a party. Kun replies that he is still doing his best to approach Kikori and gain his agreement. Hearing this, Kikori looks at Kun with a confused expression and says that he thought they had already formed a party. The moment these words leave Kikori's mouth, Kun's eyes fill with happiness and excitement. Without hesitation, Kun grabs Kikori's hands tightly and asks him if he is truly serious about what he just said. Kikori nods and tells him that he is indeed serious, explaining that it is actually he who wants to form a party with Kun after carefully observing both his personality and his fighting style during their time together. Hearing this, Kun becomes overjoyed, pulls Kikori into a tight hug, and tells him that he feels truly great about this. Once they separate, Kikori turns to Irene and asks her if she has known Kun from before. Irene answers that Kun is literate, and that alone caught her attention in the past. After this, Kun tells Irene that they have managed to defeat the hobgoblin with the handguard, the one that had a bounty placed on its head. He takes out and shows the proof of their victory to her. Irene looks at it and tells them that they are both truly amazing for being able to defeat such a monster. Kun explains further that it was a close combat type of enemy, but because it was wearing heavy armor, it had many openings that they could take advantage of. While this detailed conversation is happening between Kun and Irene, Kikori realizes that he cannot understand a single word of the specific terms they are using, and at that moment, he understands clearly that he needs to learn more to keep up with such discussions. After this, both of them part ways. Kikori walks towards Arya's house, but while walking, he wonders if it is really okay for him to go to her house. He likes Arya, and he surely does not want her to hate him. He decides that he must become stronger so that he can fill his mind with knowledge and the past won't haunt him anymore. Just when he reaches near her house, he encounters her on the way. With a gentle smile, she welcomes him back. She asks him if he is hungry and says that she is making beef stew today. He looks at her with soft eyes and thinks to himself that now he can say that he is home. He tells her that he is starving to eat her food. She replies that they must return quickly. Kikori now has a friend, and it is a new achievement for him. The next morning, inside the guild hall, Gantz walks steadily towards Irene and greets her politely with a good morning. Irene turns to look at him and comments that he has arrived earlier than she expected, noting his punctuality with mild surprise. She then asks him directly if he has come to take the investigation order for the day. Gantz, without showing any sign of doubt, agrees to her suggestion right away. Hearing his confirmation, Irene takes out a paper from the desk and places it before him, requesting that he sign it to make the request official. While Gantz is carefully signing his name on the paper, he glances up and asks if there has been any word or update from the team that went out on the last investigation. Irene shakes her head and tells him there has been no news at all. Hearing this, Gantz frowns slightly and says that he genuinely hopes everyone in that group is safe and unharmed. He goes on to explain that, with his current level of skill, it would be very difficult for him to reach the exact location where the main investigation is taking place, but he can at least cover the surrounding areas and scout for any signs of trouble. He adds that since there have been no other abnormal activities reported after the incident involving Kikori, they can take that as a hopeful sign and wish that the situation is not serious. Irene listens carefully and agrees with his reasoning. After a moment, she adds another request, asking if he could also gather some Nibe herb while carrying out his scouting task. Hearing this, Gantz pauses, looks at her with a slightly disappointed expression, and asks in a mildly questioning tone why she is assigning him a beginner's quest like that instead of something more suited to his abilities. Irene explains to Gantz that lately very few people have been taking the Nibe herb collection quest, and because of that, the supply has dropped while the demand has stayed the same, leaving them short on stock. Hearing this, Gantz immediately tells her that she should give such a basic task to a new adventurer instead of assigning it to him. Irene nods and admits that his point makes sense, but before she can say anything more, Gantz changes his mind and tells her that he will still keep an eye out for the herbs while scouting, deciding it is better to help if he can. Meanwhile, in another place, Kikori is speaking to Arya and happily tells her that he now has a teammate. Arya, taken by surprise, reacts with visible shock and quickly asks him what his new teammate's name is. Kikori answers that his partner is a catman named Kun. Upon hearing this, Arya recalls that Kun is the same young man whom Irene had shown interest in recently. Kikori goes on to explain that Kun's fighting style matches his own very well, and because of this, they decided to form a party and hunt together. He adds that this means he will probably be leaving earlier than usual from now on. Arya responds with a gentle smile and tells him that it seems like everything is going well for him now. Kikori, however, feels a little confused and wonders why she phrased it in that way. Before he can think about it too much, Arya simply encourages him to do his best. The next day, Kikori once again makes his way towards the city gate, and as he walks, his mind drifts to thoughts about Arya. He thinks about how strong she is and how her fighting style shows a level of skill that does not seem like something an ordinary guild staff member would have. He starts to wonder if she might actually be an adventurer herself, and if that is true, then perhaps he should ask her about it one day. Yet, as he reflects, he realizes with some surprise that despite knowing her for some time, he still knows almost nothing about Arya at all. Kikori reaches the city gate and finds Kun already waiting there, and together they set out once again towards the contamination zone. They enter the forest, but unlike before, the area feels strangely empty, with not a single monster in sight, not even a harmless horned rabbit crossing their path. As they continue walking deeper in, Kun mentions to Kikori that an orc had been spotted near the gate a few days earlier, and he wonders aloud if this unusual silence in the forest might be connected to that event. Kikori calmly responds that he was the one who had actually encountered that very orc. Kun stops in disbelief, staring at him in shock, and immediately asks how he is still alive after such a dangerous encounter. Kikori explains that at the time, he too thought his life was over, but by some twist of fate, the orc became distracted, giving him the chance to strike and finish it off. Kun, still stunned, exclaims loudly that he has no idea whether Kikori's survival is due to sheer luck or something else entirely. Kikori quietly says that he hopes it truly was luck. However, before they can continue the conversation, Kun suddenly freezes as a wave of cold dread rushes over him, a feeling so strong that it makes the hair on his neck stand up. He turns sharply towards a patch of bushes nearby, trying to see if someone or something is hiding there. Noticing his change in expression, Kikori asks if something is wrong, but Kun quickly tells him to get ready because something is definitely coming their way. Without hesitation, Kikori grips his axe tightly, but then he too feels a dark, overwhelming sense of danger that makes his heart race. In that instant, he realizes that whatever is approaching is far beyond anything he can hope to defeat. Acting on instinct, he grabs Kun's hand and immediately starts running as fast as he can. Kun, surprised, shouts over the sound of their footsteps, asking where they are going. Kikori shouts back that they have to run because this is an opponent he cannot possibly win against. Behind them, the bushes rustle violently, and moments later, the source of the danger finally emerges. When Kikori and Kun glance over their shoulders, expecting some terrifying creature, they are stunned to see that the monster chasing them is, in fact, a slime. Kun quickly warns Kikori not to attack the slime directly, explaining that any weapon making contact with its body will likely melt instantly due to its corrosive nature. Hearing this, Kikori urgently asks if there is any other way they can possibly hunt it, perhaps by using magic, but Kun immediately shakes his head and says that magic will not help in this case, and their only real option is to keep running. They both sprint as fast as their legs can carry them, but despite their effort, the slime is surprisingly faster, closing the distance between them with every second. As Kun glances back, he notices that the slime's movement seems strangely focused, as if it is deliberately targeting Kikori. Alarmed, Kun shouts his name loudly in warning. Kikori turns his head just in time to see the slime launching itself towards him in a sudden, rapid leap. He reacts instinctively, dodging at the very last moment, but even so, a single drop from the slime's body splashes onto his shield. The moment it touches, the metal starts to hiss and burn, releasing a foul-smelling smoke. The sight makes both of them realize just how dangerous this creature truly is. They try to think of a plan, but Kikori quickly understands that ordinary weapons will be useless against it. In his mind, he recalls that the only thing that might work is a dangerous technique, weapon-breaking magic, but using it could cost him his life. Looking at Kun, Kikori firmly tells him that if he fails and dies in the attempt, Kun must run away as fast as possible without looking back. Kun tries to protest, insisting that they should focus on escaping together, but Kikori shakes his head and says that both of them cannot outrun the slime, as it is simply too fast. He explains that he might stand a chance if the slime focuses entirely on trying to consume him. Steeling himself, he takes a deep breath to suppress the fear building inside him and charges straight towards the advancing slime. However, just before his hand can make contact, the slime suddenly shifts its shape in an unnatural, fluid motion, dodging his reach entirely, and in that same instant, it moves behind him to engulf him from the rear. Thinking quickly, Kikori turns sharply, thrusts his hand directly into the slime's gelatinous body, and shouts the command, "Break," with all his strength. At once, the weapon-breaking magic activates, and the slime's body instantly explodes and it dies. Kikori gets blown away by the force of the slime's explosion, and the impact leaves his skin badly burned and stinging with pain. As he lies there trying to recover, Kun quickly walks over to him and kneels down, placing his hands gently above the burned areas. He begins to use healing magic, and a soothing warmth spreads across Kikori's skin as the injuries slowly vanish. Kikori looks at himself in surprise and tells Kun that his wounds are now completely gone. Kun calmly explains that he has the ability to heal injuries that cannot be cured by ordinary potions. After saying this, Kun suddenly hugs Kikori tightly, telling him that he should have mentioned earlier that he possessed such an incredible skill. Kikori tries to respond by saying that it was not truly skill but more like pure luck, and he admits that he can only use that ability once, and even then, it will not work against enemies who have stronger magic power than him. Changing the topic, Kikori then asks Kun about the magic stone of the slime. Kun informs him that slimes do not have magic at all, so they do not possess magic stones. Hearing this, Kikori begins to regret risking his life to kill the slime when he gained nothing valuable in return. Kun, however, tells him that he should just be happy that he is still alive after facing such a dangerous creature. He adds that it is already a great achievement to have defeated a slime, and that this feat will likely increase his status as an adventurer. Kikori replies that no matter how much his status increases, it is not going to fill his empty stomach. Kun then starts to think aloud, wondering why such a powerful monster was lurking in that area, and he also questions why there are no goblins around when there normally should be. Kikori agrees and says that something is definitely strange. Curious, Kun asks him if he knows anything about abnormally evolved creatures. Kikori answers honestly that this is the first time he has ever heard that term. Kun explains to Kikori that abnormally evolved creatures are monsters that went through some irregular changes during their evolution process, and because of this, their strength and abilities become abnormal as well. He says that, whether it is an orc or a slime, the fact that such monsters from the deeper parts of the forest are appearing so close to the entrance means that something unusual must be happening deep inside the forest, and this disturbance is forcing them to migrate towards the outer areas. He further adds that there is also the possibility that this strange movement of monsters could be caused by an abnormal creature itself. Kikori listens to him carefully and then remarks that Kun is very knowledgeable about such matters. He then recalls that when he reported the orc incident to Irene earlier, she told him that the guild would soon carry out an investigation, so they will most likely get some news or updates about it soon. Hearing this, Kun suggests that they should return to the guild and discuss the matter there, because if they happen to encounter another strong monster, they might not be able to handle the situation a second time. Kikori agrees with this idea, and the two of them start heading back together towards the guild hall. When they arrive, they immediately see Gantz there, who is in the middle of depositing the Naibe herb to Irene. Gantz notices them and, without any explanation being asked, quickly says that it is not what it looks like. Kikori responds by pointing out that they have not even said anything yet. Kun, wanting to tease him, comments that it is perfectly fine for a veteran like Gantz to take on a beginner's quest just to earn some money. Irene, adding to the teasing, says that everyone has their own problems, which only makes the situation more amusing. This causes Gantz to become frustrated, and he angrily says Irene's name. Irene then turns to Kun and asks him what exactly happened to them. Kikori explains to her that they had encountered a slime near the entrance of the forest. Hearing this, Irene's tone becomes worried as she asks how they managed to escape safely from such a dangerous monster. Kun responds by telling her that it was Kikori who killed the slime by using magic. Irene is taken by surprise, and with clear shock in her voice, asks Kikori if he can really use magic. Kikori admits that he can, but explains that the magic he uses is a different kind of magic, not the usual type. Irene becomes even more curious and wonders aloud if Kikori might have actually invented a new type of magic. Kun then adds that there is another unusual thing going on. There are no goblins or horned rabbits around the area, which is strange. Gantz, who is listening, comments that the situation is only getting worse and worse. Kikori asks Irene if the guild has sent an investigation team into the forest. Irene tells him that they have indeed sent one, but no one from that team has returned yet. She further explains that it has only been a few days since they left, and if the team has gone deep into the forest, it could take them around a month to return. But even so, everyone is feeling uneasy about this incident. She admits that the guild is lacking a lot of information about what is going on, so she wants Kikori's party to take on an investigation quest. She clarifies that she would never normally beg anyone to take such a dangerous quest, but the information Kikori has already provided is extremely useful, and the guild will pay them for their investigation report. Hearing this, both Kikori and Kun become excited and agree that they will definitely give it a try. Gantz then looks at Irene and asks her if giving such a dangerous investigation quest to kids like Kikori and Kun is really a good idea. Irene agrees that the quest can indeed be dangerous, but she explains that they do not have the luxury of being too careful if there is truly a variant of an evolved monster that has been born somewhere in the forest. Hearing this, Kikori asks her exactly what she wants him to report. Irene tells him that she wants him to investigate the outer part of the forest and report anything unusual, such as monsters like the one they encountered earlier in the morning, or the absence of monsters that are usually present, like the missing ones they had noticed before. She also says that if he comes across any monster corpses or sees strange changes in the trees or environment, he should report those as well. She warns him very seriously to avoid going into the deeper part of the forest at all costs, as that area is far more dangerous. Kun steps in confidently and assures Irene that he will watch over Kikori and make sure he does not do anything reckless. Irene tells them that she is counting on both of them to carry out this mission properly. Without wasting time, both Kikori and Kun agree, sign up for the quest, and then head back home to prepare. After they leave, Gantz comments to Irene that Kikori really reminds him of a young Arya. Irene responds by saying that she understands exactly what he means. Gantz then adds that he has heard Arya is personally taking care of Kikori, and he believes it is most likely because Kikori resembles her so much. Irene reflects on it and says that if a certain incident in the past had not happened, they could never know what things would be like now. Meanwhile, deep within the forest, far away from the guild, a terrifying monster lets out a low, menacing growl. The ground around it is littered with the lifeless bodies of many adventurers, their weapons broken and armor shattered. The scene carries the chilling mark of something completely unexpected and far more dangerous that is about to unfold. Kikori and Kun set out into the forest to continue their investigation for the guild, moving carefully through the familiar paths they have been exploring for days. This time, just like during their previous visits, there are no sudden ambushes or surprise attacks from any creatures. Kun looks around with a relaxed smile and comments that there is nothing unusual happening. Kikori, however, feels confused by his words and points out that the unusual thing is exactly this before. The forest had been full of monsters, but now there is absolutely nothing, which is strange in itself. Kun shrugs and explains that since they have not seen anything for several days in a row, he is starting to get used to the quiet and the peace. Kikori insists that they should still report the disappearance of so many monsters from their usual habitats to the guild because it might be important. Kun suggests that instead of ending the investigation, they should try changing their perspective, search from a different angle, and continue looking for clues. By now, it has already been a full week since they accepted the investigation quest, and every single day they have entered the forest, walked deep into the outer areas, and searched carefully, yet they have not discovered anything truly strange. The only thing that has been increasing is the number of blank reports they are submitting to the guild, each with no new findings. As they walk, Kun wonders aloud if incidents like this have ever happened before. Kikori answers that he read some books about it the previous night and learned that in past cases of what the guild calls monster hazard incidents, there were very few situations where monsters simply disappeared. He explains that the term monster hazard refers to hazardous creatures that, once they appear, can cause great danger by either swarming into an area in overwhelming numbers like a tsunami, or by evolving into monsters with abnormal and dangerous strength. Kun tells Kikori that he has once heard about a past case of monster hazard in which a huge number of monsters had suddenly been born at the same time, and the result was a devastating situation where there were heavy casualties on both sides. Countless monsters were killed, but many humans also lost their lives in the process. Hearing this, Kikori responds that even a single strong monster is already enough to kill them, and just imagining the idea of facing a large number of such creatures together is enough to send chills down his spine. He begins to wonder aloud if the current strange disappearance of monsters from the forest could actually be an early sign of another monster hazard forming. Thinking further, he suggests that perhaps the monsters are not gone but are instead learning from their past mistakes, lying low, and preparing some new strategy or plan to attack. Kun shakes his head and explains that, unlike humans, different races of monsters do not get along with each other, and there is no way for one to command the others as if they were in a united army. Kikori, hearing this, remembers that until now, every time he has faced a monster, he has always ended up in some kind of near-death situation, and he thinks to himself that if a real monster hazard does happen, then he has absolutely no chance of surviving it. As they are walking, Kun suddenly seems to realize something and turns to Kikori, saying that he has noticed a detail Kikori has mentioned before, that he is not staying at an inn but at someone else's place, and now he has also said that he has been reading books. But as far as Kun knows, there is no inn in the area that lends out books to adventurers. Kikori feels annoyed and frustrated at this sudden change of topic and asks if such a detail is really important right now, especially when they are talking about something so serious. Kun replies calmly that from Kikori's actions and the hints he has given, it is not hard to guess that the someone else's place he is staying at must belong to a person from the guild. Kun then directly asks Kikori if it is Arya he is staying with. Kikori, surprised by how sharp Kun is, realizes that his reaction has already given away the answer. Seeing this, Kun becomes excited and says he knew it. He then tells Kikori that since they are investigating a dangerous incident and he is also looking for a new weapon, They should go to Arya and improve their gear before something serious happens. Kikori agrees, and they head to Arya's store together. When Arya sees Kikori, she becomes very happy and greets him warmly, hugging him tightly. Kun watches the scene and starts teasing Kikori, who quickly tells him it is nothing like that. They explain to Arya that they want to upgrade their equipment before another possible monster hazard occurs. Arya says they have made a wise choice, because if they wait until the hazard actually happens, it might be impossible to find a weapon to buy. Kikori asks her if she can recommend something suitable for him. Arya goes to her inventory and takes out a strong-looking axe, explaining that a magic stone is engraved in it. She tells him that the stone increases its power, allowing it to deal more damage to monsters than an ordinary axe. A magic stone is engraved on it to improve its power. Kun assumes that it must be so much expensive. Arya tells them that there are many kinds of magic weapons, and the most expensive and best seller is 5 lakh yen. Kikori cannot believe that such expensive also exists. Kun tells him that they should work harder from now on since such expensive one is also bestseller. Arya tells them that it is so much popular only because of its fire, and what is more important is finding right weapon for their ability. She opens up a box and gives him a magic staff since he has magic. Then she asks Kikori what he wants to purchase. Kikori tells her that his axe is still usable, but he would still like to purchase a new axe which has a magic stone even if it gives him very less advantage. She admires his spirit and recommends him to buy it. She also tells him to recharge it once its magic is depleted. Both Kun and Kikori gets their new weapon. Kun says that it is so much awesome and he wants to test its power. Kikori agrees to him and says that they need to get used to its power. Kun suggests him that they should practice with their new weapon while investigation. He recalls the church priest giving him his first axe, and then he looks at his new axe and says that it is a great weapon. Both of them engages in the battle. The next day to test their weapons. Kun successfully dodges Kikori's attacks and then counters him with his magic. Both of them realizes that their magic stone is really so much strong and incredible. Kikori takes down a whole tree with just one strike. They feels that their upcoming battle will be so much easier. Kun thinks that he can finally beat an orc with it. Speak of the devil and he arrives. An orc comes out of the bushes with a heavily injured left arm. Kun freaks out on seeing it. Kikori tells him to calm down. Kun feels weird as the orc is already in a bad shape. Kikori charges at the orc, but the orc tries to avoid his attacks. Kun realizes that it cannot fight. He tells Kikori that it cannot move its left hand, which means that it is going to attack from right hand only. And he was correct. The orc attacks Kikori with his right hand. Kun also joins the fight to assist Kikori and attacks the orc at his left arm. The orc cries in pain. Kikori takes this opportunity and aims directly at its face and kills the orc. They extracts its magic stone. Kun amazed to see its size as this was his first time seeing one. He also says that its fur is hard as armor, and they are really lucky that they have new weapons. Kun wonders out loud that why a nearly dead orc appear at such place. Kikori wonders if this orc is the one who killed every goblin and horned rabbit. But then he convinces himself that there is no way a goblin can give such injuries to an orc. Kun recommends him that they should head back to the guild and report it. He believes that this must be related to what is going on. Kun hopes that the investigation team is all right. Both of them enters the guild and witnesses a large crowd inside. All of them had their hands completely busy. Kikori asks Irene why there are so many people and if anything happened. Irene replies him that she has confirmed that the whole investigation team has been completely killed and their bodies are scattered in the forest. Neither Kikori nor Kun could believe what she just said. She says that the guild had carefully chosen the strong ones among the guild adventurers, yet they were all killed like mosquitoes. She adds that there were many monsters' corpses around it too. Irene grabs her own hand so tightly and says that this must be an attack on all humans and monsters. Kikori tells her that before a few mins, they had faced a nearly dead orc. She gets shocked to hear it. Kikori further says that it must relate to the incident, and this orc must be another victim. She agrees to him and says that the goblins and horned rabbits are too weak to wound an orc, and so there must be something which is nearly strong enough to kill an orc. She thanks them for their report and tells them that they shall collect their investigation fee and payment for magic stone. Kun tells her that she can give it to them later as she has others to attend now. Irene smiles and tells him that she is deeply grateful to him. After this, both of them walks to their homes. While walking, Kikori tells Kun that he is so kind. Kun asks him if it is not normal for humans to show kindness. Kikori tells him that he can do something in fighting, but he is completely useless when it comes to being social. He does not know what he should do to please others and always think that he will bother them. Kun looks at his face and realizes that Kikori is upset. Kikori asks him what he thinks of him. Kun tells him that he is like berserker. Then he tells him that he can just carefully observe others, and with that, he can find out what Arya likes the most. Kikori feels awkward and asks him why he is mentioning Arya. Kun replies him that he thought Kikori is thinking of her. Kikori wonders out loud what is going on in Kun's head. Both of them part their ways. Kikori goes to Arya's home and takes bath. When he comes out of bath, he decides to carefully observe Arya. He observes that Arya usually wears white clothes, which means that her favorite color is white, and her usual dish is meat, stew, and all her weapons are also well maintained. Arya notices the serious look on Kikori's face and asks him what is the matter with him. Kikori tells her everything about what they witnessed. With a concerned look, Arya tells him that it surely sounds serious. Kikori tells her that they will soon have to deal with a much stronger opponent than before, and he cannot face them with his current skills. Then, with firm determination in his eyes, he asks Arya if she can teach him magic. He tells her that the war cry she taught him really suited his fighting style, and her weapons are axes too, which means that their fighting style is same as her. He understands that he should not ask her so easily like that, but he still wants to have enough power so that he can fight like her. He tells her that he still wants to raise his fighting power even just a little, and so he wants her to teach him magic. A glimpse of the past. Irene loudly asks Arya why she got into a fight with someone she cannot beat. Arya was sitting on her bed and bandage was wrapped around her head. Irene tells her that she cannot understand what she was thinking. Arya gives her a cold look and tells her that she fought because it was a strong opponent. Irene shouts on Arya and calls her dumb. Arya arrogantly tells her that she cannot hear anything else from a flat girl. This makes her even more angry, and in a terrifying tone, Irene asks Arya how dare she say that. She pulls Arya's collar and tells her furiously that she will crush her huge mammary glands once they get outside. Arya too replies her aggressively that Irene does not even have mammary glands for her to crush. Gantz tries to separate both of them and tells Arya to rest as she is a patient. Arya was remembering all this while she is sitting with Kikori. Kikori asks her, "What is the matter?" She tells him that she just recalled some old memories, and Irene may feel the same. Kikori asks her why she mentioned Irene. Arya tells him that she and Irene are old buddies. Kikori smiles and says that it is really great. Then they return to the main topic. She says that she also thinks that their fighting style is almost similar, and no matter how much strong the opponent is, he still wants to fight. Kikori agrees to her point. Arya says that to raise his survivability, she taught him war cry, but she cannot imagine that it would take him to this path. Kikori tells her that he does not expect that the war cry will increase his survivability at all. Arya agrees to teach him the skills that she once used before. But she also has one condition, and the condition is that Kikori must not bring Kun during their special training. Kikori agrees to her condition and thanks her a lot. Arya asks him if he asked her because he knew that Arya would not say no to him. Kikori hesitates to answer her. She then asks him to go to sleep. The next morning, both of them goes to the contamination zone for the practice. Arya says that she has entered the forest after a long time and it is really so much quiet now. Both of them starts their practice. Kikori asks her what kind of skill he is going to learn. Arya pulls out her axe and replies that he is going to learn a hybrid magic called Mjolnir. Kikori recalls that Mjolnir is probably the weapon of the Thor, the god of thunder. He asks Arya if the magic is created by that genius magic warrior. Arya tells him with a smile that he is correct. She further says that this magic is going to raise the power and ability of his weapon, and it might suit those who does not care much about their weapons. Kikori replies that it might suit him, but it's not that his weapon is not valuable to him, and it is because his weapon is not everything. She agrees to him and says that this magic is like guys like that. She further says that the magic power needed for this magic is indeed very huge, and although Kikori might be able to use it, but he could only use it for once. Kikori tells her that it does not matter and asks her to teach him. Arya tells him that if his problem is magic, then he can ask Mirug as she has so many items that can increase his magic power. Then she stops talking and tells him that it is time to show it to him. She raises her axe and shouts, "Mjolnir!" A thunder strikes her axe and then she throws the axe with all her strength. The axe swings in the air and burns down everything to ash that gets in the way and then traces its path back to Arya. Arya catches the axe and asks Kikori if he has any questions. Kikori looks at all the destruction it caused and tells her that it is so much terrifying. Arya looks around and agrees that she might have gone too far. Kikori makes a gloomy face and wonders if he can ever use such great magic. Arya asks him why he is making such a gloomy face. She realizes that she has not explained how to do it. She has I-N-2, she I-N end, she I-N end. She goes on explaining the magic to him. She says that first of all, he needs to increase the power of his weapon by covering it with lightning, and then he needs to increase the further, more by adding his own magic, and then adding the returning magic into the weapon so that the weapon can get back to him. He concludes that the fighting power is doubled. She tells him that Mjolnir is the kind of magic for killing an opponent at all cost. Kikori grabs his axe and tries to practice it, but he could not perform it like Arya. He gets exhausted and sits under a tree. Arya observes that the sun is setting, and it is almost night, so they should head back to their home. She looks at him, and he was in the condition to not even get up. Arya laughs and says that it seems too much tough for him. In a firm voice, Kikori tells her that he will never give up, even though he is not much confident in himself, but he trusts her and her magic, and so he will give his best. Arya gets emotional and hugs him tightly and says that she really wants to become an adventurer once again, and she does not want to hold herself back anymore. Kikori tries to push her away, but her grip was so strong. But then Arya suddenly notices that something is coming towards them, something so much large and terrifying. She pushes Kikori away, far away. In an instant, a huge goblin about the size of an orc and a necklace made of skulls wrapped around his neck comes out of the bushes and punches her so hard. Kikori opens up his eyes and finds Arya lying unconscious in front of him. He could not think of what to do. The monster growls so loud and walks towards him. He looks at the monster with terrified eyes and realizes that it is the abnormal one who is causing all the ruckus. In the blink of an eye, the monster launches a punch at him. He barely manages to dodge it, but before he could land on the ground, the monster's other attack was on its way. Kikori realizes that there is no way to escape it, and this is his death. Suddenly, an axe comes flying and hits the hand of the goblin. The goblin roars in pain and gets few steps back. Kikori looks at the axe going back to Arya. She looks up and releases her war cry with so much rage. Then, without wasting a second, she charges at him. The monster tries to punch her, but she dodges his attack and aims directly for his neck. She barely misses the attack. But the necklace of the monster breaks down and falls on the ground. This makes him even more angry, and he launches a barrage of attacks at her. Arya tries to block all the attacks with her shield and jumps away from the monster. She asks Kikori if he is all right. She also tells him that he should head back as he cannot fight against an abnormal one. Kikori stands up with determination and tells her that since she is not running away, he is not going to run away like a coward either. A small smile blooms across her face, and she tells him to keep his focus straight always and attack it before their chances of attacking decreases. He grabs his weapon tightly. Arya commands to attack the monster at once. Both of them stands in front of the monster. Kikori asks Arya if she has any plan in her mind. Arya tells him that her only plan is to kill it. Kikori looks shocked on hearing her simple plan. Arya goes for the first attack and tries to slash him. Kikori goes behind her and attacks on his hands, but it was of no use as his skin is so thick. Arya asks him if he can create an opening for her so that she can deal with it as fast as she can. Kikori replies her that he will try his best. He rushes towards the monster and distracts him. On the other hand, Arya summons her Mjolnir and throws it directly towards the monster. A huge explosion takes place. Kikori expects that the monster is dead, but as soon as the dust clears, he realizes that it has only lose one arm even after a direct hit from the Mjolnir. He feels even more terrified and wonders if they can really kill it. Arya summons thunder to her axe again. Kikori looks at her and cannot believe that she is using it once again. He realizes that she has lost the control of her magic. He shouts to her to not do it and let him do it instead. He tries to activate Mjolnir, but nothing happens. He quickly realizes that he cannot do it. He grabs his axe and feels so much terrified. Meanwhile, Arya launches her attack once again at the monster, and just after doing it, she collapses to the ground. Kikori runs to her and Dee holds her in his arms. He tries to wake her up. The dust clears, and after that, he could not find the monster anywhere. Arya asks Kikori if he is still okay. Kikori tells her to worry about herself. She tells him that she wants to chase it and kill it, but she is so much tired. Kikori tells her to not worry about the monster and picks her up on his back. He walks her back to the city. Two guards standing near the gate, and one of them wonders why it is so quiet. Other one says that it is always like this lately. Then he says that Arya and Kikori has left in the morning and there was a huge explosion in the forest. The other one says that it could be Arya's popular attack. Then their eyes fall on Kikori, who was walking out of the forest with Arya on his back. Both of them suddenly run to them and asks them what happened to Arya. Kikori tells them that they have met the abnormally evolved one and they could not beat it. The guards could not believe that Arya was also not able to beat that monsters. Kikori looks down and with a depressed voice says that he could not do anything. The guard tells him that they are already so lucky that they made it back. The guard picks up Arya and tells Kikori that they will take her to infirmary and so he should not worry anymore and take rest. Both of the guards head to the infirmary. Kikori seats near the gate and whispers to himself that he is still so much useless. Next day, Irene walks to Arya and Kikori in the infirmary in Aila's. She finds that Kikori is sitting beside her. She tells him that a long time ago she lost her control over her magic, and after that she left being an adventurer. She also says that stupidness is engraved in her personality, and so he should not blame himself. Kikori replies her that the monster they faced is far more stronger than any other monster he has faced so far. However, he still believed that Arya can kill it, but it is not good at all. He further says with a depressed tone that he is always dependent on Arya's skills and so he could not do anything. He was arrogant due to his recent achievements and so he thought that this time would be no different. He clenches his teeth and says that he thought he has gotten stronger but he is still weak. Irene stops him from speaking any further and tells him that his strength is his own problem and so he should deal with it himself. Kikori wonders why she is so rude. Then, with very soft voice, Irene thanks him for bringing her back, and she is saying it as Arya's best friend and not as a guild staff. She tells him that he didn't chase the enemy and prioritized Arya's life and hence he is the one who saved her. Kikori tells her that he did not do anything and just ran there. Irene tells him that winning is just one of the results, and most important is staying alive. She hits the mark. Kikori recalls that it is exactly the same thing that Arya told him once. Kikori walks to Arya's house. He enters the house and closes the door. He feels very lonely without Arya. Someone suddenly knocks the door. Kikori walks to the gate and opens the door. He finds that it is none other than Kun. Kun tells him with a smile that he has brought food for him since he has not eaten anything. He also says Kikori that it is made by Gantz especially for him. He hands over the food to him and tells him that he must eat at all cost. Then he tells him that it is so much fortunate that he and Arya are safe. Then he bids his farewell and leaves. He tells Kikori that he will pay a visit when Arya is all right. Kikori thinks to himself that he has always felt so much useless and once there was no one for him but now he has friends. He shouts Kun's name. Kun turns back and looks at him. Kikori loudly says that he will see him tomorrow. He also happily replies that they will. Kikori enters the house and eats the meal made by Gantz. He smiles and wonders how Gantz can cook so good with such an ugly face. He finishes the whole meal and goes to sleep. The next day, Kikori and Kun walks to Mirug's store. Mirug looks at him and says that he has arrived at the right time since she has something that she wants to sell him. Kikori tells everything that happened to him and Arya to Mirug. He says that he could not do anything, and so Arya had to carry all the burden all by herself. Mirug tells him that it is pretty impressive that they met an abnormally evolved monster and still they are alive, and yet he looks dissatisfied. Then she asks him if he wants to go and kill it himself. He instantly tells her that he wants to do that exactly. His determination impresses her. She asks him if he has any secret moves. Kikori tells her that he has learned Mjolnir from Arya, but he is not sure if it will work, since he has very little magic power. Then he asks Mirug if she has any gear that will boost his magical power. She asks him if he really thinks that something like that is not available in her store. She tells him that she had a hunch that he would come to her for such items since he lacks magic power, and so she has kept it ready for him. She also says that it has a certain compatibility. Mirug enters a room and asks him to follow her. Kun and Kikori goes behind her. She shows him a black armor. Kikori asks her if it is a magical item. Mirug tells him that he is 50% correct. She says that the armor was originally designed to enhance sustained combat ability, and the magical stone attached to it is meant to extract magical power. It was intended for user to channel power beyond their own magical capacity, or to act as a last-minute lifeline. Kikori asks her if it means that it can counteract magical depletion or shortages. Mirug tells him that it was the original plan behind making it, but it ended up unleashing an unforeseen effect. She sauce tot. It did not choose the magic to charge after all, and it is not just human targets, but he could also absorb the magical energy from the monsters. She explains him that if he hugs an enemy while draining the magic from a stone in the air, then it would also absorb the magic from the monster and weaken the enemy. But there is one issue, and it is that when one touch and absorbs their magic, Kun adds that it can lead to magical incompatibility. Mirug gets impressed and says that he is the knowledgeous one. She speaks further that when they mix the magic of two different beings, it does not blend well and can lead to disastrous effects like increased aggression, which one could call berserk state. Kun tells her that it would fit perfectly to Kikori. Kikori asks him what he means by that. Mirug tells him that he fights exactly like Arya. Kikori tells her that she is being a bit presumptuous. She tells him to attract the monster with his war cry and then attack him. She also says that him and Arya are definitely the same, but he cannot unleash his magical strength like Arya can at her own pace. Kikori recalls Arya's fight with the monster and thinks to himself that he still have a long way to go to reach Arya's level. He decides that he will be taking the armor. Mirug feels shocked and asks him why he did not ask the price. Then she tells him to not worry about the price, and he can give it to her later. With a confident smile, Kikori says that he is going to kill some abnormal monsters. Mirug wishes him best of luck and tells them to leave. After preparing for it completely, Kun and Kikori heads to the contamination zone to kill the monster with their new set of gears. Kikori asks Kun if he is ready. Kun replies that he is a bit nervous, but it is all right. Kikori takes a long breath and looks at the sky. His instinct tells him that the monster is near. He releases his war cry so intense that even Kun steps back few steps. He shouts to the monster that he is going to kill it. After it, Kikori pulls out his axe and patiently waits for the monster to show up. But the monster comes out unexpectedly from his beside and punches Kikori so hard and sends him flying. Kun looks at the monster and feels so much helpless. The monster had wrapped something around his right arm that was cut by Arya in the previous battle. It looks at Kun and then goes for him next. Kun manages to dodge his attack but also feels terrified after watching the impact of his punch on the ground. The monster picks him up and throws him away. Kun flies on and hits a tree. He feels so much weak against the monster. He thinks that he does not possess any special strength, and his agility is also average among all the others Beastman. But here he is doing just fine, and as long as he can get by without dying, it is enough for him. The monster approaches Kun again and picks him up with his one hand. Kikori also arrives on the spot. Kun recalls their plan. Kikori told him that he is going to take a hit on purpose. Kun warned him that he would die, but Kikori said that he would only die if he got hit in the head. He also said Kun that he did not know how much he can charge the armor in an instant, and if their plan succeeds, then they can strike the monster at the same time. He requested Kun to stay alive until he gets up after getting hit. Kun recalls all of his plans and wonders if they are actually going to win. Kikori throws his axe instantly and slashes off the monster's other arm too. Then he runs to Kun and asks him if he is all right. Kun replies him that he is feeling like he is dead. Kikori concludes that they are good. Then he looks at the monster and says that cutting an arm is not enough to take him down. Kun asks him if he has any plans in his mind. Kikori recalls Arya's words and says that he is going to do whatever it takes to kill him. Then Kikori again charges at the monster with his axe. Kun thinks of a way to make an opening for him. Kun tries to attack the monster's leg, but it was so tough for him. The fight between Kikori and monster continues, while Kun tries to get away. Then he again goes for his legs and strikes there again and again. The monster gets furious and kicks Kun, but in the next moment, the bones of his legs crumbles. He cries it in pain and falls to the ground. Kikori realizes that his bone is now shattered. He takes the chance and touches his head. His armor charges up completely and he unleashes all the magic power in it at once. Mirug had warned him that the armor has never tested him in real battle, and so no one has any idea what would happen when it is fully charged. But right in the moment, he does not have any other choice. Lightning strikes him instantly from the sky. He feels immense power flowing right through his body, but at the same time, he feels like he is being consumed by his own power. Kikori's eyes turned black and the look on his face was more than enough to make the abnormal monster to pee his pants. The monster tries to run away, but there is no way for him to escape a Kikori. Kikori raises his sword and whispers the word, Mjolnir. Lightning strikes him instantly. The only thing going on his mind is that he must kill it. He shouts, and then throws the axe with his full strength towards the monster, and his axe literally wiped up each and everything, including the monster in the whole area. The dust settles, and Kikori walks out of it. He collapses and falls to the ground. Kun runs to him to heal him, but he accidentally touches his armor, and it also absorbs his magical energy. He also starts losing consciousness, but then he hears someone running towards them and asking them if they are all right. Kun slowly whispers to Kikori that they are okay now, and after that, he also loses his consciousness. Two other adventurers arrive at the scene and takes both of them back to the city. Kikori opens up his eyes and finds himself drowning. A golden light is coming from his above. He tries to lift his hand towards the source of light, Kikori smiles that Arya is alright, but then he suddenly freaks out as he was touching her cheeks. Arya smiles and tells him that he was just now touching her and this can only lead to one thing, which is marriage. Then she asks him when shall they get married. Kun arrives there and wishes him good morning. Then he asks Kikori how he is feeling. Kikori tells him that he is feeling like he is in the brink of death. Then Kikori asks Arya how much time he was asleep. Arya tells him that he was asleep for 2 days. Kun says that he slept for half day, and once he recovered his magic, he casted a spell on himself and fixed all his injuries. Arya tells them that they really went through a lot. With a gloomy face, Kun says that he might have underestimated things a bit, but back then what he experienced was so much terrifying even when he had his new gear. Then he says that his memory is a bit hazy, but there was overwhelming energy radiating from Kikori back then and he could not do anything. Kikori tries to recall and says that back then he felt like a dark force surged through his body and he could not control it, and there was only one voice in his head which was telling him to destroy everything. He says that he really cannot believe that all of this is possible with the magic of the abnormally evolved monster. Kun suggests him that they should go to the church priest and ask him about it as the forest situation is not going to change soon. Then Kikori asks Arya if she is coming out of the hospital. Arya tells him that it might take her a little bit longer. She tries to tease Kikori by seeing that he must be feeling so much lonely without her. Kikori casually tells her that he certainly feels like that. Arya could not believe it and hugs him in happiness. She says that it is a sure thing for marriage and asks him when they should register their marriage. Kikori keeps on telling her to get away. A nurse comes and tells Arya that she cannot just wander around like that with her condition. After 2 days, Kikori gets discharged from the hospital. Kun meets him and asks him how he is feeling. Kikori says that he is doing great and asks him if he is good with him. Kun agrees to him. Then Kikori says that it has been ages since he has gone to the church. Kun says that they should give their best in that day's studies inside the church. Both of them completes their sessions, and it proved to be a disaster for them. While walking back home, Kikori says that he cannot believe that he was completely exposed for his lack of knowledge and had to endure a relentless lecture on what it means to be a priest. He still feels satisfied that he did learn something. Kun says that both of them gained something from this experience. In summary, the priest told them that the phenomenon that occurred during the release of magical energy was a rampage caused by the abnormally evolved monster from the usual magical distortion. An abnormally evolved monster refers to a monster whose body has evolved into a robust form due to magical change that occurs during the growth process, and they are driven by an unnatural urge to destroy. Kikori always thought that why such a powerful monster did not take control of the forest, but now it seems to him that there is more to the story. He also received serious scolding from the priest for absorbing such a wicked magical power, but some even say that it is really a miracle that it happened. The armor is his ultimate partner that can fulfill his lack of magical energy, but still, he wonders if absorbing a monster's magical energy is too much risky. Kun suggests Kikori Tat they should head to the guild next day for some reports and intel, and they have not even claimed their rewards. Kikori agrees to him and recalls that he needs to pay Mirug for the armor. Kun tells Kikori that for now they should just go to their homes and take rest. Kikori replies that he can already feel that a lecture is waiting for him in his dreams. On the other hand, Arya is standing near the window and looking up at the sky. She suddenly feels an intense pain in her chest. 2 nurses suddenly rushes inside as they heard Arya screaming. They laid her in the bed and increases the dose of the calming magic stone. Arya calms down and looks at the moon from her window.